Good afternoon, students. Let's start the class. We have completed two classes on economic survey. Part 1 and part 2 is over. Now today is the last class in economic survey. Today we are going to complete the volume 2 also. Okay, now we have learnt about the chapter number 1, chapter number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in our previous classes, and then today we are going to learn about the 9th and 10th, and then the volume 2. Okay, so let's directly get into the chapter number 9. So enough revision we have completed in our previous class, so which have consumed a lot of time in the previous session, so I'm not going to repeat that. So these are the things which we have completed. Okay, so up to 8 we have completed. Okay, now we are going to learn about the chapter number 9. So chapter 1 dealt about the pandemic, chapter 2 dealt about the debt to GDP ratio, chapter 3 dealt about the sovereign credit rating, chapter 4 we have learned about the inequality and growth impact on the economy, chapter 5 we have learned about the health importance in the economy, 6 we have learned about the process reforms, 7th we have learned about the forbearance mechanism and its impact, and 8th we have learned about the innovation. Now 9th we are going to learn about the Ayushman Bharat. So what is the core plot of this chapter is, in this chapter the government says that the Ayushman Bharat scheme, Ayushman Bharat was implemented by the government, we all know that. Along with that, Jan Arogya Yojana. So both what kind of impact these things have had on the health sector in our economy. These things are dealt in detail in this chapter. So how the government has dealt about this means, so government has followed a pattern. What is the pattern is, here the government has taken the states where the scheme was got implemented, and the states where the scheme is not implemented. For example, Jan Arogya Yojana implemented states versus Jan Arogya Yojana the states where it was not implemented. So they are doing comparative analysis. What is the outcome on health with respect to the implementation? How the government has done the how the government has done the check. For that, government has followed a mechanism. What is the mechanism is, you all know that Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they used to take a survey known as National Family Health Survey. We know that the name of the survey is called as NFHS. We all know about the survey. So what the government has done is, the Jan Arogya Yojana got implemented on 2018. Okay, so government has implemented, not Jan Arogya, Ayushman Bharat got implemented on 18. So here NFHS survey taken before 18, and then NFHS survey taken after 18. The two things are compared by the government. What is the health outcome in our country according to this survey, and then what is the health outcome? For example, this was taken on 2015 and this was taken on 2019. In between we had the entry of the scheme. So here, what is the impact of the scheme? So what is the prior status and what is the post status? So this analysis is done by the government. This is the plot of the chapter number 9. And here the government has taken the states which have implemented the schemes, and then along with that, government has done one more analysis also. Sometimes there may be criticism, it is based on the political bias. Okay, let's keep those political views aside. So two angle government has given the analysis, done the analysis. One is the states where the scheme got implemented, and the states where the scheme is not been implemented. And the next one is they have taken West Bengal as a state where the scheme is not implemented. And then next, government has taken the adjoining states, Sikkim, Bihar, Assam, which means the states which are adjoining and the states which have the same geographical or economic similarities. The thing they are compared, and then so the states where the schemes got implemented, what is the outcome? The schemes where the states where the scheme is not implemented, what is the outcome? Whether the health indicators got improved or whether the health indicators got deteriorated. So that is the analysis done by the government. We are going to learn what is the what is the explanation given by the government in this chapter. So now let's get into the chapter. So now first, this is the way how the government has opened the chapter. of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and most inhuman. This tells about how the health is very important to the economy of a country. Okay, this is how the survey starts. Okay, this is how they started. Now, next one. This chapter demonstrates strong positive effects on healthcare outcomes of the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So what is the outcomes of the Jan Arogya Yojana? So the states where the scheme got implemented, where the scheme was not implemented. So now according to this, the government says that what is the impact? Okay, the Jan Arogya Yojana and its impact on the health outcome of the people. For example, during the COVID time, the claims made by the people, it got decreased, but once again the claims got increased after the pandemic, which means so initially we had a downturn. After that, everything got resumed and then came back to the normalcy. So this is the impact of the Jan Arogya Yojana, and then during the COVID times. So then the government is doing the analysis by taking the National Family Health Survey taken before the Jan Arogya Yojana and then after the Jan Arogya Yojana. So they taken this one got implemented on 18, and before that National Family Health Survey, which was taken on 2015 and then 2019. So the two things are compared to know about the outcomes. So then what is that? So it's very simple. So here many times the people have the opinion it is the politically biased analysis done by the government, like that. Okay, let's keep aside the views because they taken West Bengal and then they are saying that West Bengal indicators are very poorly performing. So let's keep those things aside. Let's look at the economic survey as per the economic survey. So here what is the government's view is, so here the government has taken West Bengal along with the Bihar, Sikkim and Assam. Next one is for all the states that did not implement the Jan Arogya Yojana. So two way the government has explained the impact of the Jan Arogya Yojana on the health outcome of the country. So what is the details on the survey? According to this, according to the National Family Health Survey 4 and 5. So here you can have a look. So the pink and then dark color, dark red, it indicates the states where the Jan Arogya Yojana got implemented. And these are the states where the Jan Arogya Yojana is not implemented. So here the government says that, for example, neonatal mortality and infant mortality under 5, like that government has given many charts. I've taken 1 or 2 charts because I'm not going to waste much more time because the plot is very simple. One line we can finish the chapter. So what is the point? The states where the scheme got implemented, they are showing better outcomes. The states where the scheme was not implemented is not able to show better outcomes. That's all. The point gets completed here. So here we are having some examples. So according to this, for example, here you take this in the neonatal mortality. When you take the case of West Bengal, they had got the decrease, but the decrease is 30%. But here the government says in the states where the Jan Arogya Yojana got implemented, there we have 31% of drop. So here, even though it's 1%, they are claiming that it is comparatively higher. The same angle here, infant mortality. Here we have 20% decrease in West Bengal, but in the states, in the Assam, Bihar, Sikkim, the drop is 28%. It's more than the states where the scheme is not implemented. The same angle, under 5 mortality. Here it's 27% better, but here comparatively lower. So here government makes the argument and here government makes the verdict that. So the Jan Arogya Yojana has made positive impact on the health outcomes of the people by taking the two kind of analysis. One is the state specific comparison, which means West Bengal versus the adjoining states. And then second one is overall states of India. So second one is this chart tells about the overall states performance, not in the West Bengal scenario. So here this one, pink indicates the states where the scheme got implemented. So these are the states where the scheme is not implemented. So here they are saying that what is the health coverage? Health coverage, for example, the people, those who are brought under the health insurance, these people, the percentage got increased. For example, 54% increase in health insurance coverage in the states where the scheme got implemented. And then here there is a 10%. Only there is about 10% is also drop in the health insurance coverage. But here there is insurance in health insurance coverage. Because health insurance coverage, as we all know, it is very important to the socio-economic quality of the people. So here the scheme has made more impact on the people. So the survey advises that it is better to all the states to implement the scheme. So this is the complete understanding what you have to generate from this chapter. With this, I'm finishing. I'm not going to waste much more time. So what is the core essence of the chapter is, this chapter has done a comparative analysis between the states, those who have implemented the Jan Arogya Yojana, and then the schemes where the scheme is not implemented, states where it is not implemented. And then they are saying, and then they are telling what are the outcomes between the states where the scheme got implemented and where in which the scheme is not implemented. So this is how the chapter goes and gets concluded. So now let's move on to the next chapter, chapter number 10. So this one-line understanding is more than enough, students, with regard to chapter number 9. Now next one is chapter number 10. So what is the chapter number 10 is all about? This chapter is all about bare necessities index. Here the Ministry of Finance, they have framed an index. What is the index they have framed? They have taken the water facilities for the people, and they have taken the housing facilities available to the people, and they have taken sanitation facilities available to the people, and they have taken the micro environment facilities available to the people, and then the last one is the other facilities. So here what is the meaning is, sanitation we all know, water facilities we all know, the access to the water, distance between the source and then where the people live. So how long the people are making traveling to get fetch the water. So the housing facility, what quality of house the people they are having. Regarding the micro environment, regarding the drainage facilities, what the people have. Regarding the sewage facilities, and then about the flies and mosquitoes in a particular area, and what kind of measures are taken by the local bodies to control the flies and mosquitoes, what kind of quality environment the people are living. Then other facilities means whether the people have separate kitchen, whether they have separate bathrooms. These facilities are brought in or considered by the government, and now they have framed an index called as a bare necessities index. And this chapter makes a comparison. What they are doing, what they have done in this chapter is, they taken the year 2012 and 2018, and they are comparing what is the improvement in the states, what is the level of improvement across the states in all these indicators. In sanitation, what is the improvement? Water facilities, what is the improvement? What is the impact of the government schemes on these bare necessities? These are the needs what the people should have. So here, what improvement the government has done on the lives of the people with respect to these facilities. So the government has, the finance ministry has framed an index called as a bare necessities index. Now they are comparing the performance across the states by taking the timeline. One is 2012, 2018. All over India, what is the performance of bare necessities index when compared to 12, and what is the status on 18? Then same angle, rural, whether the facilities got improved in rural or only in urban. What is the rural scenario? What is the urban scenario? In this angle, government makes the analysis and government may make some concluding points. What are the points? We are going to learn about them. Okay, students. Now you can write the bare necessities index. So this is the chapter title. Now you can take a note of these points. You can take a note, or you can just look at this, because all the contents will be delivered to you on tomorrow. Already I told you, once the volume 1 and 2 gets over, all the things what I've shown you on the slides will be delivered to you in the soft copy format. Water, housing, sanitation, micro environment, and other facilities. So these are the facilities which are considered to frame the bare necessities index. Then the government has done a comparative analysis. So here you can look at the slide. Interstate disparities in the access to the bare necessities have declined, which means there is improvement in the access to the facilities across the states in 2018 when compared to the level of facilities what the states were having in 2012, which means improvement in performance, and then the bare necessity disparities got declined. Disparities declined, improvement in facilities. This you have to remember. And then one more point what you have to remember is, the bare necessities facilities were very low in 2012, and the facilities got improved relatively more in 2018. So we are going to have a look at those, look at the scenario with the help of some charts. some pictures. We're going to take the help of the pictures. Now, access to bare necessities is the highest in the states such as Kerala, Punjab, Haryana and Gujarat. So these are the states where the facilities got improved in a more significant manner, which means that people are able to have better access to these facilities. And it is lowest in the states like Odisha, Jharkhand, West Bengal and Tripura. So these are the low performing states with respect to the bare necessities index. Okay. So high performing states and low performing states. Then this is the picture which helps you to understand the bare necessity index scenario in our country during 2012. Here what is the red given in the chart? So red indicates the for example, in the performance is 0.50. So here the government has taken up to the level of value 1. The states where the level is 1, it means that they have got all the facilities, all the adequate facilities. When the level is below 0.50, then it indicates low performance or low access to the facilities. Then yellow indicates, for example, red means less than 0.50 up to the scale of 1. Now yellow means 0.5 to 0.7, better than the red. Next one is green means above 0.70, where the necessities are better than these red and yellow zones. Here you can have a look in overall India. So in all the states, for example, you can take a states like Rajasthan, okay, and then Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh. In many states, Bihar, West Bengal, many states, okay, the bare necessities index is very poor. The value is very poor because it is in red. And many states it is in yellow, except few parts of Kerala and then few parts of Haryana. So most of the areas we have got the things in yellow, which means the people were not having adequate facilities on 2012. Then next, this picture will tell you what is the improvement. Here you can look at the improvement in Gujarat, improvement in the Punjab. So you can have improvement in the Kerala, okay, like that. Many states the things got improved. So this is the overall, which means the things which are in green, and many states have come in the yellow zone. Here look at the previous picture. So here most of the states were in the red zone, but here many states have come to the yellow zone, even though they have not come to the green zone, which means they got more areas to be improved. But here the performance has come to the yellow level. Red is the very poorest level where the people were not having the access to the basic facilities. But here the yellow says that there is improvement in the access to the bare necessities. So this is a picture for the overall India. The same thing now we are going to learn in the rural and urban dimension. What is the rural scenario? What is the urban scenario? So now rural India progress. Earlier the scenario was with respect to the overall India. Now we are going to learn with respect to the India. Now rural India, look at the rural India. So the picture says that the bare necessity index was very poor across the rural areas of our country. Entire country. So leaving some Punjab, Haryana, okay, and some areas of Himachal Pradesh and Kerala, many areas were in red. So rural areas, the access to the bare necessities was very low or it was very minimal. And government says because of the efforts taken by the government through the Swachh Bharat and National Drinking Water schemes, many schemes, all the facilities which were directed towards the bare necessities has made huge impact on the lives of people. Example, here the government says the scenario in rural India in 18. Many states which were earlier red in color, now they got turned to yellow or green. So this is the point conveyed by the government in the survey, saying that the bare necessities got improved, which means better or access to the basic facilities among the people using the bare necessity index is revealed through this through this chapter. Now what is the scenario across urban India? Next one is in the urban India, what is the scenario? What is the outcome? Look at the urban India. Rural India, most of the states were red in color. But here, urban India, most of the states are yellow in color, which means in 2012 itself, most of the urban states were having better access to the bare necessities. It can also be interpreted in one more angle. In 2012, the focus was levied by the government only in the urban areas. Urban areas was getting the priority, but not the rural areas. But in 2018, or during those years, in between the years, the government has delivered even importance, or else we can say in other way also. More importance is given to the rural area. Rural people were also given adequate importance. So what is the result in 2018? So here, see, urban area, they were, for example, rural India, they were red in color. From red, they have moved on to the yellow in color, which means a progressive development. Urban area, they were yellow in color. The map shows that yellow in color, urban India. Now they have come to the green picture, which means they got improved access to all the facilities. So the Awas Yojana or drinking water facilities. So all the Saubhagya, so and then all the schemes, Swachh Bharat, they have made impact on the access to the bare necessities in both rural and urban areas. Example is rural India. Kindly have a look at the image once again. Rural India, it was red in color. It got moved to the many areas, got converted to the yellow zone. Urban India, which was yellow in color, got converted to the green color. So this is the conclusion. And apart from this, the survey also makes a strong statement saying that these improvements, the improvements means we are talking about bare necessities. The facilities what we deliver to the people in the bare necessity areas is not only helping the people to have this facility, but it is also helping the people to have impact on the other areas. When we provide the basic facilities, the people are showing better health outcomes. People are showing better education outcomes. So it is not only the delivery of these bare necessities, along with it you are also having some spillover effect on the economy. So that's how the survey goes, and then concludes by saying that, so this job must be continued and then it should be given more focus by the government. So this is the core plot of chapter number 10. So chapter number 9, so it's a one-line thing we have completed, one line we have completed, comparison between the states which have implemented the Jan Arogya Yojana and the states where the things were not implemented. And then next one is about the bare necessities index, where the government has shown the performance across the states, both in rural perspective and in urban perspective and in overall India perspective, how the things got improved in India. So this is the chapter number 10. So these two chapters I have planned to finish in the previous class itself, so that we would have got the feel. Volume 1 got completed, but because of lack of time we are not able to complete. So now we got the things completed. So now you would understood that only after chapter 8 the things were more conceptual. Chapter 9, chapter 10, only two things or few things to be understood. So with this we are finishing chapter number 10. So I have two more slides to complete the chapter number 10. So here you can understand this point. In bare necessities index, more facilities have been delivered by the government to the poorest of poorest. These people have got more access when compared to the rich people, because more facilities have been delivered by the government in areas where the poor people are residing or in rural areas. This is one of the findings delivered in this chapter. Then, as I have told you, the bare necessity index or bare necessity facilities delivered by the government is not only, or it has not only delivered the bare necessity facilities, along with that other improvement, health outcomes, education outcomes. So this job has to be continued by the government. Okay, so with this, these are the slides. The point which I explained or given in theoretical format, as I have told you, so these things will be sent to you in soft copy format. So need not worry about copying. So that's why I'm not giving, because when I give time to copy, it is the session gets stretched. We are not able to finish the area. So the writing things and all. So need not waste the time. So I'll be sending you the content in the soft copy formats. Okay. So with this we are finishing the chapter number 10. Now this is the diagrammatic representation which tells you drinking water facility, how the things got improved. Because I was telling you a point. The most of the benefits got delivered to the poor people than the rich people. So I was telling you a point, this point. So you may be having question in your mind. Sir, what is the basis based on which you are conveying me this point? Or how this economic survey is conveying this point. For this, they have given some diagrammatic justifications. What does that means? For example, you know about the quintile in economics. Quintile means 1/5. For example, when you take the value of 100, so up to 20 is the first quintile, and then second quintile, third, okay. So up to 40 is second one, up to 60, up to 80, then 80 to 100. So when you have the poorest of the people, of the poor in the country, they'll be coming in the first quintile. Rich people will be coming in the last quintile of the country. So here this diagram tells us that most of the bare necessity index performance occurred in the first quintile segments of our country, or first quintile areas of our country, where the poor people were living. In those areas, government was focusing on the facilities. So the equity in delivering these bare necessities was served by the government. That is the point conveyed in the survey. Further, government has given some examples. With respect to this, we have a look. Quintile 1, and then quintile 5. Two extremes they have taken. For example, here the improvement in facilities. Look here. Improvement is wider in this quintile 1, where the poor people are living. Improvement. But here, see, there is a flat line, or there is a marginal increase. So more facilities happen. This is the overall India picture. This is a rural India. Look here. Rural India, more facilities, or facilities got improved in the quintile 1, or in the poorest of the poor area, vulnerable area, economically weaker area, than the rich people, where the rich people or economically affluent people are living. So in this angle, government makes a justification. The improvement is not only widespread, it is also served, or it was also directed by the government towards the vulnerable people. They were able to reap the maximum benefit out of the bare necessity index improvement. So in the same angle, in the urban India also, more improvement in the quintile 1. So this is the diagrammatic representation. Same angle they have given for sanitation, and then for micro environment, other facilities. So all the things the same thing, okay. Just you can have a look. Housing index, how the things got improved means more performance in this area. Relatively, maybe the performance may be lower, but the overall scenario is we are able to achieve more in the quintile 1. So this tells about the equality in justice, or equality in serving, or equity in serving the poor people. Then micro environment, more improvement in the quintile 1, and then less improvement, more improvement, less improvement, more improvement. Here you see there is a drop. There is a drop in those facilities, but the drop is not an encouraging sign. Everything should improve. But here, so they are saying that, okay, we have served the poor people more. Then other facilities index, the same thing, same scenario. Not that much. Here it's wider. Here it's wider. Here it's it's okay, but very minimal. In this angle, we can interpret. Our survey is telling us the points in this manner. With this, we are completing the chapter number 10. Okay, students. Now let me come back to the initial point of our session. During the part number 1 of our class, so this is the part number 3 of our economic survey. Part number 1, when I started the class, I was telling you that what is going to be the outcome of this economic survey class. What the class is going to deliver you. How the class is going to be useful. So at the time I was showing you some questions, and I was telling you that at the end of the session, you will be able to come out with the answers. So at the time, some of you would have had answers on your mind, but many of you may not have the answers in your mind. But now I think that after the class got over, the volume 1 is over. Now we may be able to come out with the answers for the questions. So to do the cross check, I'm going to show you the questions once again. So now by looking at the question itself, you'll be able to come out with the answers. Now what are the questions? Back to the questions. Which one to be followed in the economy? Pro-cyclical is best or counter-cyclical is best during the time of recession? So the survey's argument is counter-cyclical, which means during the expansion, economy don't require the support of the government, but during contraction. So this is the time in which, or during which, you have to expand you have to implement the expansionary policy. You have to provide your supporting measures. So this is the argument. So this is the answer to the question according to the economic survey. So now the second question is, regulatory forbearance is good or bad? They are saying that it's good. Regulatory forbearance is good, because if you are not doing, then what is the role of the government? But don't prolong it. So that is the title. It is a medicine. It is not a food. Medicine means once the problem is over, you have to stop it. Don't continue it. If you continue, then it will have some side effects on the economy. So the point is, it is not bad. They are not saying. So they are trying to justify. So it is good if it is considered as a medicine, but not as a diet. Don't extend it. If you extend means, what are the problems that we have learned in our class? So you may be able to come with the answers for this question. Now third one. What is the correlation between growth and inequality on socio-economic outcomes? Positive or negatively? So here they are saying that, or we have understood that, growth always is directly proportional. When the growth improves, outcome will improve. But inequality, when it improves, outcome won't improve. That is a normal scenario. But in our country, the scenario is different, which means whether the growth improves is also having positive impact. Inequality is a bad thing. But even though inequality is increasing, we are not having that much negative impact on our economy. So now we need not worry about the inequality. Let's focus on the growth, because the growth has got more potential to reduce poverty. When the poverty gets reduced, automatically inequality will also be reduced. So in this angle, they are making a different justification. And then we have learned about the examples also. Then fourth one, which one is lacking for India? Regulatory requirements or regulatory compliance? Normally we all think that we are not good in compliance, but the survey has conveyed us we are good in compliance, but regulatory requirements, we have got more than the need. These things must be reduced, because we are not willing to let the people to take up the discretionary the decisions. So we are binding them with rules. So it is not a good sign. So rules can be replaced with supervision, or else ex post after the activity. So ex post resolution mechanism, and then by bringing transparency, like there are many more things we have covered. If I go in detail, then once again, okay, so it will consume more time. Now, does sovereign credit rating reflect the fundamentals? Yes, they should reflect, but for India, it's not reflecting. We are good. We are having zero credit default history. Then why you are degrading India? Because we are not worried. So the document says, as a country, we are not worried, but we have got some people, those investors. By looking at this rating, they may take their final call to invest in India. If they take the call based on your rating, so then actually then it may stop the investments to our country. So don't do this rating. Make the rating more objective, but the ratings are more subjective. Same scenario, you are giving different rating for developed economies. But for developing economies, different thing. But you are giving different justifications. But we don't accept that. Like that, government is making a strong argument against the credit rating agencies. So that we have learned in the chapter number 3. So that is the answer for this question. Now you know the answer. Now next one is, does growth lead to debt sustainability? Yes, they are saying that as long as the interest rate growth differential is negative, you need not worry about the borrowing. Which means when the growth is more than the interest rate, you need not worry about the debt. So because you can borrow, and then you can go ahead with the expansionary policy. That is the thing which we have learned, which is the answer for this question. Then the 7th one, what is the right time to press the growth accelerator during demand and supply shock? So it is the different perspective, or different in contrast to the measures taken by the other country. In India, what is the call is? In India, first we have addressed the supply side constraints. Then we press the demand accelerator. Because the government has done the argument without adjusting the supply side constraint. When you press the demand accelerator, then what may be the net outcome? Without improving the output, when you increase the money supply, it may lead to inflation in the economy, which the government did not want to have in the economy. So the government applied the principle of addressing these issues, then pressing the demand accelerator. That is the answer which we have dealt in an elaborate manner in our class. Next one is, will higher public expenditure always lead to crowding out? That is a normal thought what we have in the school of economics. But the survey makes the argument, no, it need not be always. Sometimes the crowding out, when it is done in the more productive areas, which will activate the idle resources. So these things will not lead to crowding out. Rather than the crowding out, it will lead to more private investments in the economy. A different type of logical argument they are placing. So one school of thought already which we have in our mind normally. But here they are saying that sometimes instead of staying idle, when you activate the idle resources, this will incentivize the private people to put more investments. And moreover, the survey argues that savings is not fixed for an economy. Or when you do the investments, initially, even though it crowd out the private investments, the investments done by the government will lead to income among the people. Income will improve the savings of the people. The savings which will become the deposits and then loans which can be utilized by the private people in the longer run. So these things and all we have dealt in our volume, in our part 1 class. So that stays as the answer for this question. So that's why I started that our part 1 class by saying that these are the questions for which we will find out the answers at the end of the part 1, end of the volume 1. So now the volume 1 gets over. I'm completing this. So volume 1, so the chapter 1 is less important. Chapter 2 is important. Chapter 3 is important. And then chapter 4 about the inequality and growth will give you some idea to write some main answers. Chapter 5 is about the health. And then chapter 6 about the process reforms. And chapter 7 forbearance. Chapter 8 innovation. Chapter 9 and 10 are less important. That's all. So I finish in a short manner. Okay. So now we're going to get into the volume 2 of economic survey. Okay, students. Now let's get into volume 2. Okay, students. Now we are going to learn about volume 2. So volume 2, as usual, we are going to have a look at some of the questions. And here I'm going to show you some questions in the preliminary, based on the preliminary examination. I'm going to show you some questions. So for those questions, you will find the answers from the chapters, what we're going to learn in volume 2. So in volume 2, what are the questions? Okay, this volume 2 is going to make us find answers for some questions. What are those questions? The labor force participation rate for women is lower than the labor force participation rate for men. Which means women, they are participating less in the economy. What is the reason? We'll find out the answer. So in chapter number 10, okay, we got the answer. How India differed from the front-loaded stimulus package. When the problem happened, or when the entire world economy got hit by the pandemic, all the governments came forward to the support measures. But here the government of India argues our measure was quite different. So in what way it is different from the other economies? So what is the answer? We'll find out in chapter number 1 itself. What is meant by Laffer curve? We all know that Laffer curve is the thing what you would have understood in the public finance during your prelims preparation. Laffer curve says that tax rate, up to what level it is optimal, up to beyond that, what is the damage on the economy. Now, the Laffer curve concept, will it be applicable to the foreign debts? That is a question. So this we will learn in the external sector chapter number 3 in volume 2. So this is a question for which you will get the understanding. Mains angle, if the question is asked, or if it is not asked, we can apply them as a point in the mains answer writing. Then comes the fourth one, recent agriculture reforms. It is already, these things would have been dealt in the current affairs, would have studied. But the chapter will understand, okay, recent agriculture reforms a remedy or a malady. So what is the impact, good or bad to the farmers? The next one, headline inflation or core inflation. You know about what is headline, what is core inflation, which one is good for the economy, what is the right thing to take monetary decisions in the economy. Then comes the next one, the transmission of high reserve money. The transmission of high reserve money growth to money supply growth was only partial. Which means even though the RBI took measures of increasing the money supply in the economy, the transmission mechanism looked impaired or looked disturbed. So the RBI was not able to achieve the intended consequences, intended results. What it planned to achieve. Why? What was the reason? Why the transmission mechanism was in an impaired stage during the pandemic crisis? So for this, in the chapter number 4, we'll get answer. Then few prelim-based questions. So let me show you the questions. Here I got 4 or 5 questions, students. 3 or 4 from volume 2. One or two questions from volume 1. So now itself you will be having answer in your mind for those questions. So what are those questions? Look at the question. These are the ways how the questions may be asked from the economic survey in prelims. Which among the following are considered to be the demand side disruptions witnessed during the pandemic times? So the question is not about the supply side or not about the constraints, disruptions. It's specific with respect to the demand side disruptions. So the point number 1 is disruptions in productive capability. So what is that? This is supply side, demand side. We all know that it is a supply side constraint, so it's not the answer. Anyway, we are going to find out the answer in the chapter number 1. Uncertainty associated with precautionary savings. Due to uncertainty of economy, people, they are not spending. People are keeping their money in their pockets or at home, which means they are not spending it, which means it is the demand side constraint. Uncertainty associated precautionary savings. Reduction in consumption due to wage loss. People, they lost their jobs, they lost their wage, so they are not ready to, they don't have the means to spend. So it is a demand side. Reverse migration of workers. People, you know that normal migration is from rural area, they go to urban area. But from urban, when they come back to the roots, that is a reverse migration. It happened during the pandemic. Many people, they lost their job, they came back to their hometowns. Because of that, what happened is, the people, for example, they would have been they were working in urban area. Now, when they come back to the rural area, this urban area, in the company where they were working, they may not be able to carry out the production because they have lost their labor. Because the laborers have gone back to their native place. The company may not be able to go ahead with the production process. So it is the supply side constraint. So it is a supply side constraint, this is not the answer. These things and all, you will find out the answers only through economic survey. So for this, you will be having answer in chapter number 1. So this is how the questions may be asked from economic survey. Second one. So it is also dealt in economic survey. Which among the following sector was least affected during the pandemic period in India? Undoubtedly, we all know that agriculture is the only silver lining. During the pandemic times, all the other sectors, manufacturing, tourism, construction, everything got affected. So agriculture is the silver lining for our economy. Now, which among the following taxes are least affected? Income tax, people's income got affected. Corporate tax, companies' profit got affected. And demand side disruptions, GST also got affected, but the GST recovered. After October, November, it recovered. But during the most of the pandemic time, so it was not crossing, it did not cross the 1 lakh mark, 1 lakh crore mark. And central excise remained undisturbed, and then it was highly yielding to the government. It was helping the government to manage the loss. Shock absorber. Because of the decrease in the petroleum prices, government was able to increase the taxes on the petroleum because it will not be having that much impact. We know that the increase in the petrol price in our economy. Central excise was highly yielding to the government. It remained undisturbed. It was least affected. So this is the answer to the question. Okay, this is the one. Okay, all the things got affected, and then this is the answer. Consider the following fiscal stimulus packages introduced in India to revive the economy from the pandemic crisis. Choose the correct answer according to the order of implementation. How the things were implemented. What is the order of implementation? Order is the first thing, stimulus was directed towards saving the vulnerable people. This is the order number 1. Second one. Then boosting the consumption demand, pressing the demand accelerator. Then third one is capital spending. In between, when you want to add anything, what you can do is first the vulnerable, then supply side, then demand side, then investment side. But in the question, supply side is not given. So we can go for 2 and then 1 and 3 as the right order or sequence in which the government acted during the pandemic time. So these are the things what you'll understand from economic survey. Then comes the things, the questions from the volume 1, the prelim based questions. Now students, you try to have a check whether you are able to find the answer for this question, because already I have explained this in our previous class. Consider the following statement with respect to NPAs in India. The mean NPA is very higher for yearly resolvers. What is the meaning? The people, those who are acting as quickly as possible. For them, the mean NPA is very higher. It is the first statement. Second one is exactly reverse. The mean NPA is very higher for late resolvers. The people, those who are prolonging the forbearance. People, those who are extending the forbearance. For them, the NPA is higher, or for the opposite group. The answer is the survey has clearly conveyed us. Act as soon as possible. Don't prolong the forbearance. The mean NPA is very lower for yearly resolvers. So correct answer is, this one is wrong. Is very higher for, so the mean NPA is very higher for yearly resolvers. Which means the mean NPA is very higher means for yearly resolvers when they are trying to, the mean NPA is very, let me erase this. Yes. So what is the thing? This one is a wrong statement because the mean NPA is very lower for the yearly resolvers. That is the right statement. So this statement is wrong. This will become right when when the statement is changed in this way. The mean NPA is very lower for yearly resolvers. But how the statement is given higher for yearly resolvers, it is a wrong one. Second one, the mean NPA is very higher for late resolvers. No. Yes, okay, this one is right. The people, those who are coming late, for them, the mean NPA is very higher. This one is right, this one is wrong. So choose the correct answer is, this one is the correct answer. Now next one. Consider the following statements with regard to the healthcare spending in India. So this we have seen in chapter 1. So in the chapter number, in volume 1, chapter number 5. So what are the statements? Poor quality healthcare is common in both public and private hospitals. Yes, we have seen, not only in the public hospitals, in private hospitals also we are observing poor quality of healthcare delivery. So the statement is right. Second one, India has got adequate number of healthcare professionals when compared to the global average. So what is the global average? Global average says that we should have around 44 healthcare professionals for 10,000 people, or at least we should have 23. But Kerala is the only state where we have got the healthcare professionals in adequate manner. Remaining states we don't have. So this one is the adequate means no, we don't have the adequate professionals. Wrong one. Increase in equity in healthcare access is decreasing in India. So next statement. This we have seen in our class. I think in the class number 2, in part 2, we have seen the answers for these questions. What is the answer? Increase in equity in healthcare access is decreasing in India. Here the statement went wrong. Increase in equity in healthcare access is increasing in India, which means the poor people are also able to access the better healthcare facilities in India because of the improved access to the facilities. So Jan Arogya Yojana, Ayushman Bharat, okay, I've been cited as examples. So the statement is, this one is wrong, this one is wrong, this one alone is right. Poor quality healthcare is common in both means it's right one. But the two statements are wrong. These things and all we will find the answers only when we have gone through the economic survey. This is the way how the questions may be asked from economic survey, both in the prelims and mains. Okay, now let's get into the volume 2 chapters. Chapter number 1. Chapter number 1 is very simple. This already we have completed in volume 1. The volume 1 chapter 1 and volume 2 chapter 1, they both are similar. But anyway, the left out points which we did not learn in volume 1, I am going to explain you here. So what are the points we are going to learn here? The chapter heading is this. State of the economy, a macro view. How the economy, you know that economy means during the pandemic, everything was only affected by the pandemic, and then our economy was in a downturn. We know, and the economy had V-shaped recovery. And we know that during the worst case scenario, what is the solution mentioned in the survey is, something is happening, something worst is happening. So at that time, you cannot expect the best things. The best thing to do is to keep the loss as minimum as possible. That is the strategy. And how the government acted. To know about the government's measures, fiscal measures or monetary measures, we should have the understanding what were the problems in our economy or what was the state of the economy. Our economy got hit by two sides of problems. What were the problems? One is we are having demand side constraints, we are having supply side constraints. So what were the demand side and what were the supply side? So we know about the challenge. Look at this picture. So this is the demand side shock. For example, reduced investment due to increase in future uncertainty. Future is uncertain, so people did not invest. So demand side constraint. Next one, reduced demand for non-essentials. People spent only on essentials to run their life, but people did not focus on the non-essentials. So the demand got curtailed, demand got decreased for the non-essentials. The next one is reduction in consumption due to wage or income loss. So the things which you came across in the previous question. So they are given here. That's why I told you, when we move across the volume 2, we'll find answer for those questions. So these are the demand side shock. Then supply side, labor supply shock. People they went back to their native place, and then disruption in supply chain linkages, transport mechanism in all the areas. Everything got disrupted because of lockdown. So these were the two shocks what we had in our economy. Along with that, the people, those who were vulnerable, people, those who were weaker, they got severely affected because their basic living standard itself, livelihood itself got affected. So what were the measures taken by the government? So as we have seen in the previous chapter, previous volume, so government took the measure of protecting the vulnerable people at first. That's how the government acted. Second one, to address all these supply side constraints, supply side adjusting all the issues, then improving the demand of the people. For example, transferring the money to the people. So transferring all the transfer payments done by the government. Then boosting the investments by doing the capital expenditures on the economy. So here the government says that, so our measure is quite different from the measures followed by the other countries, because they followed front-loaded, which means initially without waiting for the recovery of supply or demand, everything, they immediately increased pumped in more money. But India acted in a calibrated manner. So what was India's response, fiscal response? First, protecting the vulnerable people, give them the basic food, everything. Then supply side shock you address, ensure the output in the economy. Then slowly increase the demand. Then you try to increase the demand manifold by increasing or pressing the demand accelerated through investments. So these are the points which are conveyed in the survey. So in one more angle also we can understand the government measures. What were in what way? First, the government focused on containment, containing the spread of the virus. You know that the people, those who are infected, so and then tracing them, and then tracking them, and then treating them like that. So about all the virus which we all are quite familiar. So and then next after that, okay, and government came with the monetary measures. RBI side, the best possible, what are the best possible solutions? Increasing liquidity, using the monetary tools. Then fiscal side, pressing the demand accelerator by transferring the money to the people, and then increasing the government spending in the economy. So monetary measures, fiscal measures. And then comes the last one is the reforms. Because government thought that only during the crisis time lies the opportunity. Because that can also be argued in another sense. Because during the time people will be having some they won't be having the thoughts of opposition in their mind. So it's the right time to make some reforms, so which are much needed for the economy. So the fourth one is government undertook most reforms. So these are the things which are discussed in chapter number 1. What were the problems of our economy? Demand side, supply side, and we try to protect the vulnerable people. Then supply side, demand side, then investment in a calibrated manner. Then the measures followed by the government: containment measures, monetary measures, fiscal measures. Then the structural reforms undertook by the government in the economy. So these things are dealt in chapter number 1. That's all. Okay, this is about chapter number 1. Kindly copy the points or have a look at the points. State of the economy, the only silver lining was agriculture. And all the other sectors got affected. Many areas where the contact sensitive sectors like services, tourism severely got affected. Then we all know our economy witnessed V-shaped recovery. But due to second wave, but that's not given in survey, but for practical understanding, it went down and then came up. Okay. Then policy response to COVID. We all know that globally, many countries, they slashed the interest rates, which means the policy rates, they slashed so that the rates will be accommodative to support the growth of economy. So this is a global picture. So all the countries, they brought the rates down. So what was the measure in India? India's response to COVID. So the measure or in this pattern. First, we try to control containment measures, control the spread of virus. Then fiscal measures, first the vulnerable protection, then supply side, then demand side, then the investment boosting. Then monetary measures through RBI. You know about the open market operations, and then reverse repo operations or long-term repo, all those things. Then structural reforms, the reforms done in the agriculture acts in India, labor codes, MSME definition, and reforms done in the BPO sectors or IT sector. So those can be cited as some of the examples for the reforms, the long pending reforms like that the government argues. So these are the measures. Then the fiscal measures, fiscal response alone is given here, priority of response. Priority of fiscal response. Not entire response, fiscal response. Weaker, then consumption demand, then accelerating the capital expenditure. So this is how you have to understand the chapter number 1. This is more than enough, students. Apart from this, they have given many examples, how, for example, different sectors, how the damage happened in agriculture, drop. Agriculture, we are not having that much drop. In all the sectors, industries, IIP data, in manufacturing, construction, tourism, all the sectors. Then about the virus impact, how many people got affected, what was the impact on the states, these things and all we can leave. What is the core essence of the chapter is this. Okay. So now let's get into the chapter number 2. So chapter number 1 is all about the economy during the pandemic and then measures taken by the government during the pandemic. How our measure is quite different from the measure taken by the other countries. Now comes the chapter number 2. Chapter number 2. Chapter number 2 is all about fiscal developments. Fiscal developments of economy, which means we all know about the fiscal indicators and how the fiscal things are analyzed in the economy. These things are explained by the government. What was the scenario, everything that we are going to cover into the chapter number 2. What was the scenario of GST collections, and when the government accelerated the spending, what was the level of spending done by the government, and regarding the government fiscal deficit, so the trends in expenditures, all these things we are going to come across in the chapter number 2. So first of all, in chapter number 2, you should have the basic understanding how the government acted during the pandemic time on the ministries, which means what were the restrictions placed by the government. You know that during the pandemic time also the ministries, they have to do the normal function. But government classified the ministries into 3 different types, which means ministries under the category group A and B and then C, which means these ministries are directly involved in controlling the pandemic. These ministries were not levied any restrictions by the government. They can go ahead with the expenditures. No stop. No, nothing will stop. Nothing will be stopped by the government. So they can go ahead with the regular procedures, regular expenditures as per their budget estimates or more than that also. But B is the ministries or departments which are indirectly involved in the control measures. They are not directly involved. So this is the second one. Third one is the ministries which are not at all connected with the crisis. So government levied some restrictions on the ministry A and ministry B and then ministry C. So for example, in the ministry on A, government was not having any restrictions. They were allowed to go ahead. But ministry B, or not ministries B, coming in the category B. So here they were allowed to spend 20% of their budget per quarter. And category C, low priority ministries or departments which were not directly connected, they were allowed to spend 15% of their budget per quarter. But here also, with regard to the capital expenditure, no restrictions were placed on B and C. Only with regard to revenue expenditures, this level of restrictions were imposed on them. But regarding capital expenditure, they were not stopped by the government. So first one, no restrictions. Second one, they were allowed to spend 20% of their budget. Third ministry is allowed to spend 15% of their budget. And fourth one is exceptions for the capital expenditure on ministries coming under B and C also. Even though they were restricted, for capital expenditures, they were not stopped by the government. This shows the intent of the government with respect to the capex or capital expenditures of our country. So this is the understanding you should have in your mind before getting to the chapter. Next one is the other fiscal developments. First one is GST collections. We all know that it got heavily witnessed a downturn during the pandemic crisis. But during the months of October and November, December 2020, the GST collections recovered in our economy. It crossed the 1 lakh crore mark, and continuously it crossed the 1 lakh crore mark for 3 months. And then in the month of December, it touched the figures of 1.15 lakh crore. At that time, it was the all-time high in our economy. All-time high. Since the launch of GST, it was considered to be the all-time high. But now you know that, okay, now we are the current scenario. Leaving the economic survey, so in the current affairs perspective, when you look means, we have touched the 1.45 lakh crore also. So in the recent times. So according to the survey data, so the survey says that the GST recovered. So and then the survey says that why it got recovered means because of the reforms done by the systemic changes done by the government and recovery of the economy. And then government was very hawkish, or government was having a check on the evaders. So government was having check on the bills. So because of the stringent mechanism followed by the government, so the collections got improved in our economy, which was used by the government for the other expenditures. These are the points which are mentioned in the survey with respect to GST. So you can have a look at the point. GST collections have crossed the 1 lakh crore consecutively for the last 3 months, reaching its highest ever in December, and has been the highest monthly GST collection since the introduction. So okay, this is the slide number 1, and this chart says the increase in GST collections in our economy. And third one, so the reasons for the GST compliance is recovery, and then the nationwide drive by the government, and many systemic changes made by the government. These are the reasons for recovery in GST collection. So all the points will be sent to you, students. So that's why I'm not able to give adequate time to copy the notes. Excuse me for that. Now the next one already we have dealt in chapter number 1. Anyway, here fiscal angle we are going to learn about the fiscal response. Our government's measures were in a more calibrated manner. So what were the measures? In opposite to the front-loaded package, other countries, they gave the stimulus during the start of recession or downturn itself, but we waited for the right time. Second angle. Here, initially, we focused on supporting the vulnerable, and later on only we started the expenditure. Why? Because initial expenditures by the government may lead to inflation in our economy. So we started reflating only during the second stage. Initially, we did not try to reflate because we thought it will lead to more inflation in the economy. We started reflating in the later stages. These things are already we have covered. Then trends in expenditure. As we have seen, vulnerable people, initial stages, then supply side or demand side boosting, then capital expenditure. So I'm going to give you some charts which gives information on those expenditures. So what was the trend in expenditure? The chart says that initially, during the months of March 2020, when the lockdown was announced by the government, at that time, government was putting more expenditures on the vulnerable people. So 88% of the expenditure was directed towards the vulnerable people, poor people, giving them food and livelihood. 88% of the expenditure, balance was spent on the remaining areas. But during the month of May and June, here government started increasing agriculture credit 30% and liquidity support 37%, which means almost 57% government started spending on the other fiscal measures, expansionary measures in the month of May, June. Then next chart says that during the month of October, more than 51% was spent by the government on investment areas, boosting the investments. And then along with their consumption boosting, 49. More or less, they both are similar, only 1% difference. Later stage, so investment boosting is around 59%, and then agriculture 25%, housing sector, which means government drastically increased the investment expenditures in our economy during the later stages. So these slides will give you some information about the way how the government was spending during the crisis times, or what was the step-by-step measures followed by the government. Then, so this chart will give you some idea about the increase in expenditure. During the pandemic crisis till September, government was not doing that much expenditure. Later on, government increased the expenditure. Here, students, you should have the point that economic survey, if it is dealt in a political way, we may have many criticism. But here, as an aspirant, when you try to become the government servant, our duty is to read the economic survey in a neutral manner, to keep aside all our opinions. So whether I'm aligned to any other party, these things and all we should keep away. So as an economist, as a student, okay, so what are the points I can take for the examination? What are the points I can write in the examination? Only those things I'm going to tell in the class, and only that's the way how you have to make use of the economic survey. Because here, when you're arguing in this way, in a political angle, we may have the counter arguments. Anyone will be having counter arguments. But the economic survey, like counter arguments, okay, this is not the place to do that, do those things and all. So here we must be concerned about what is mentioned in the economic survey. What are the ways of, because we are using for the exam purpose. So here, when you are saying that government decreased and government increased, sometimes we have the counter argument from other parties saying that no. So here the government did not do at the right time, but here government is trying to justify. There may be counter argument for any activity. But here, what is our understanding is, so here government says that, why? Because government is justifying. Here I try to address all the supply side. And moreover, I was having less fiscal capability. With the less resources, I should spend the resources most judiciously in my economy. So it gave me more room to act. So this is the way how the things got justified. So according to the economic survey argument, most of the expenditures were done by the government during the later stages. Okay, so this is the point what you can take from this slide. Next one. According to the budget estimate, the fiscal deficit was only around 7.8 lakh crore. It got revised by the government to 12 lakh crore. But here also, many times we got the criticism saying that this 4 lakh crore is not adequate. You have to pump in more money. So 4 lakh revision is not enough for the economy. So, but here, okay, the survey says that government got the revision of the figures. And then non-debt receipts. You know that we all know theoretically what is the meaning for the non-debt receipts. Non-debt means which comes from the revenue angle, and then it comes from the capital angle. Non-debt revenue receipts means from tax and from non-tax. Non-debt capital means you know about the sale of assets, recovery of loans. So here the survey says the non-debt receipts were having minus 17.9%, so which means moving in negative direction, which gave less space for the government to operate. So non-debt receipts is a theoretical understanding, revenue non-debt and then capital non-debt. And then capital non-debt is the things which are non-repayable. Okay, so this is the understanding from this slide. Next one, about the global petroleum prices. The survey says that, so during that pandemic, the most important, significant supporting factor to the government was none other than petroleum price. Globally, because of the subdued economic activity, the demand got curtailed, and then petroleum prices got decreased or declined at the global level, and government used this as an opportunity to reduce the subsidy what the government was extending to the petroleum products. Government reduced it, and government increased the tax also. It acted as a fiscal shock absorber to the government, and also led to the increase in revenue collection. How? Because you know that excise duty is the only area where the government got more revenue. It gave more space or more room to the government to operate. So the positive point is the drop in the petroleum price. It is mentioned in the survey. And then center's debt to GDP ratio. According to the survey, center's debt to GDP ratio is mentioned that, okay, so we have at this level, so 2020, so level of, okay, center's debt to GDP in the level of 48-50%, which means it was going down, but because of during the pandemic time, slightly there is a moderate increase in the debt to GDP ratio of our economy. And then this one is about the maturity profile of debt, which means when you are borrowing from a lender, so what is the tenure of your borrowing, whether you have borrowed short term or long term. We know that short term borrowing is always bad, because when you are borrowing for a short term, you will be having the economic pressure to repay them as quick as possible, which may not be possible during the pandemic because you are in a crisis. You have lost your revenues. For example, we've seen that non-debt is going down, tax revenues are going down. At the time, how you'll get the ability to repay? You may not be having the ability. So it is always during the crisis, postponing the repayment will give you more room or more fiscal room to stabilize your economic scenario. So here this chart says that this is about the 5 years, this is about 10 years, this is about 20 years, more than 20 years. So they mentioned that the 5 years, the short term, it was 30.9, it got reduced to 29%, which means short term debt we did not increase. But when you compare the short term 30, this one is 11, means you may have the counter argument. Short term is more. But according to the survey, they are saying that short term has got gradually decreased for the government. And then government gradually increasing the long term debts. From 11, we have got them increased to 16.9. This shows the path in which the government is traveling, which means government is trying to increase the long term maturity profile, because which will give more space to repay, more time to repay. And short term is gradually coming down, 5 to 10 years. So 35, it is coming down. And then long term, these two things are coming down. But here, long term government is showing the willingness to borrow for longer tenure, because longer tenure will give more room to operate. So that is the interpretation what you can have from this maturity profile of debt. In this way, we are completing the fiscal developments. And one more thing, which is given in the survey, which I failed to mention, most of the measures taken by the government during the pandemic times were criticized by the people as they are called as a below the line measures. And you should understand what is the meaning of the word above the line measures and below the line measures. The measures which are taken by the government, which will lead to impact on the fiscal deficit of the government, is called as above the line measures. But the measures which will have some expansionary impact on the economy, but don't be having an impact on the fiscal deficit of the government, they are called as a below the line measures. Example, when you give some loans to the people, when you are directly spending in the economy, so it will be reflected in the budget, it leads to fiscal deficit. But when you pump in the money in the form of loans or equity infusion, or you are starting a fund through which you are giving loan to the people, it will increase liquidity, but it won't get directly reflected in the fiscal deficit of the economy. So most economists, they have the view that government should focus more on the above the line measures, not below the line measures. But here even the government accepted that the below the line measures were huge during the time of the crisis, which means fiscally may be helpful to the government. But for economic revival, the economists have the opinion that instead of below the line measures, above the line measures are most suitable during the pandemic times. So this is the understanding what we should have from the fiscal developments chapter. So how the government acted, what was the scenario of GST collection, and what was the impact on the excise duty because of drop in petroleum price, and then the debt to GDP ratios, and then the maturity profile of the debt. So these are the things which are conveyed in the chapter number 2. So now the chapter number 3. Here students, I am not going to, here I have not explained anything from the budget. So the budget means here I would have talked about India's budget expenditures, everything, these things and all. But here I have just kept my contents with respect to economic survey points alone. Now what is the chapter number 3? Chapter number 3 is about external sector. The sector which got severely affected during the pandemic. So because you know that the trade, because even the domestic activity, when it got disrupted, we cannot imagine the disruptions globally. So it had a huge impact on the external sector transactions. So the survey starts with the point, COVID-19 had resulted in sharp decline in the global trade. This we all will accept, and this all we all have witnessed. Then top 10 export and import commodities of our economy. So during the last year, because there may be minor changes now and then with respect to the top 10. So here the survey tells about the top 10 export commodities. Here what are the top 10 export commodities of our economy are? Petroleum products tops the pack, and then drug formulations, second one, and pearl and precious stones is the third one. Iron and steel is the fourth one. Fifth one is electric machinery and equipment. These are the top 5. with respect to preliminary examination, you should know this. Top export commodities of India. So here the outer layer is for the 2020 and inner layer is for the 2019. For example, the petroleum products, it stood at 13.5% during 2019, but it got decreased to 8.8% during the 2020. So in this angle they are given. So kindly have a look at this. So here top 10 export commodities, and the next one is top 10 import commodities. Here also we have the petroleum products. Petroleum crude we all know, petroleum products, petroleum, crude petroleum, then gold, then telecom instruments, then coal. These are the top 5 products what India is importing. So this you have to understand with respect to our prelim examination. So the things may be given to check your understanding, the order or the commodities which are heavily imported by India or exported by India. You should have the understanding, students. And then Indian pharmaceutical. So external sector, this chapter has discussed about the importance of India's or Indian pharmaceutical industry. And we all know that with respect to the volume of transaction, what we do across the countries, we are third in volume in pharmaceutical transactions. And with respect to the value of pharmaceutical exports, what we are doing, we are 14th globally. And we know that India is planning to become a manufacturing. We are now manufacturing hub, but we want to move to the top slot in the pharmaceutical. And then the survey says that we got the resources and we got the capability also, but we have certain constraints also. For certain raw materials, the pandemic time has revealed or shown to India that still India is depending on China and US for some raw materials. These things and all must be addressed in our economy. Then only we can achieve where we want to move in the future. So like that pharmaceutical industry, what is the potential we have and where we want to move, what are the constraints we have, these things are discussed here. Let's have a look at those points. Here, third largest in terms of volume and behind China and Italy. Third largest in terms of volume behind China and Italy, and 14th in value terms. And here look at the point. There is a concept called as trade specialization coefficient. So in trade specialization coefficient is the value what we have between 0 to 1. When you have the value of 1, which means you have more specialization, you are competent enough, you are more competitive. So according to the trade specialization coefficient, India's value is closer to 1. And then the document says that our value is closer to 1 since 2014, which means we are strong enough to compete with the other countries. We are more competitive because trade specialization coefficient is closer to 1, which means the highest level is 1. So we are closer to 1. So it tells about the advantage what we have in our economy in pharmaceutical sector. And then we have got the raw material base and we got the workforce. We got the adequate skilled workforce in our economy, not the unskilled people. We got the skilled workforce in our country. So these are the positive things what we have to achieve our goal of becoming the manufacturing hub. At the same time, we are the country, those who are highly dependent on other countries for the pharmaceutical ingredients. This area must be addressed. You all know about this here. This is the point mentioned in the survey. But when you write in examination, you can make a connection. What is the connection? You know about the production linked incentive, production linked incentive scheme of the government. There you can point, you can say that this scheme is introduced by the government to address this problem of our economy, because we have a scheme where we are focusing on the pharmaceutical ingredients. Okay, that is the measure taken by the government. So this is the understanding. So this is the advantage. This is the problem what we have. So when you address this, we got the potential to become the pharmaceutical hub of the world. Then the survey has taken in external sector. They have taken analysis between India and Bangladesh. Sir, why India and Bangladesh? So they have taken the top 5 export commodities of India, and they have taken top 5 export commodities of Bangladesh, and then they are saying that the document says that the top 5 export commodities of Bangladesh occupies 90% of exports of Bangladesh, which means top 5 what they are exporting, it constitutes 90% of their overall exports. But for India, the top 5 export commodities, what we are exporting, it constitutes only 40%. So this is the one interpretation what they are telling in the survey. Second interpretation what they are showing is, for example, the top 5 exports what we are doing in our economy is not the area where we are strong. For example, India is more strong in the labor intensive sectors, but here the top 5 export products are capital intensive products. We are strong in labor intensive, but we are exporting the capital intensive sectors, which means we are not exporting the products where we have more comparative advantage than the other countries. So, and then for Bangladesh, they are getting specialized in the areas where they are comfortable, where they are competitive, where they are comparatively advantageous. But India is not getting specialized in the area where we are capable of. Instead, what India has done is India has diversified its exports. But Bangladesh has got specialized in the area where they are more competent enough. So this, and then the survey concludes that this gives a lesson to India to get specialized in the area where India is more capable of. So this is the thing which is discussed in this segment of chapter number 3. You can have a look at the points. So look at the point. Top 5 export commodities account for more than 90% of total exports in Bangladesh. So what are those? They are labor intensive things, textiles, garments, footwear, those things. But India's are capital intensive things we are doing exporting. India export performance is more broad based, as the top 5 export commodities contribute around only 40%, and they are capital and technology intensive in India. Okay, students. Now look at the chart, Bangladesh exports. Here, the top 5 exports of Bangladesh in 2015 or 16 or 17 or 18 or 19, in all the years, the top 5 exports constitute 90%, 92%, 92, 92, 92, which means more than 90. The top 5 exports, they are occupying a space of 90. Only the balance, the rest of the products occupy a space of only 8%. But look at the case of India. For example, look at the products. The knitted apparels, footwear, vegetable textile fibers, and other like that, other textile materials, they constitute the top 5. But for India, the top 5 constitute only 40% of the overall exports. That's the scenario. In 16 also 42, in 17 41, in 18 44, in 19 42. So here the point is the overall, not overall, top 5 exports constitute only 40%, which means if we are specialized, then not in that way. For example, if we are having some top 5, so it means that we should be specialized. If we are specialized, we should be focusing only in those areas. But we have made the process of diversifying our specialization. So we are not able to become more dominant in our top 5 exports. So that is the problem for India. That is the lesson for India. It is a good interpretation from economic survey, which you can use in your answer writing during the main examination. Okay. So here I am concluding this segment of chapter number 3. This holds lessons for India to build specialization in products in which India is competitive. Okay. So this is the answer for India's stand when compared with the Bangladesh. Next one, current account deficit. Sorry, current account surplus. Because normally we used to say current account deficit for India. So I also used the word current account deficit. For the first time in 17 years, India has witnessed current account surplus in our economy. So what is the scenario? What is the point conveyed in the economic survey? The point is, in the last 10 years, the current account deficit for our economy ranged about 2.2%. That's a range of current account deficit. In the last 10 years, which means year after year, India was witnessing 2.2% of current account deficit, CAD. But for the first time, during the crisis time, and that also in the crisis time, so for the first time, India had witnessed, the survey says that we are going to witness 2% of current account surplus, 2% of GDP as the current account surplus in our economy. But you know that is expectation posted in the survey. But now we are having the class after the publication of survey. The current scenario, you know that we are not able to touch that level. We came nearer to the 0.5% only. So the survey expected that India may end up with 2% of GDP as the current account surplus, but we ended at the 0.5% levels. So for the first time after 17 years, India ended with the current account surplus. Now comes the question. What is the reason? This question may be asked in the preliminary examination. What is the reason for India's current account surplus? Because we all know that the current account is a component of BOP. BOP is made up of two segments. One is current account, one is capital account. To have the surplus, so then India should have done more exports in this category. So what is a current account is made up of? Means current account is made up of two components. One is it is made up of trade account, and one it is made up of invisible account. Either here or here India should have made the surplus, then only it would have led India to have the surplus in the current account. So what is the answer? Where India ended with the more exports, whether in trade account or in invisible account? The answer is, the survey says that here we cannot feel proud about the surplus what we have achieved during the recent times, because it is not because of the more exports happened from our country. It is not because of exports. It is mainly because of less imports in our country, and there also because of the drop in the petroleum prices, we imported the petroleum products at the low cost in our country. So it is not because of the high exports, it is because of the low imports. If India had achieved this status with the help of more exports, we can feel happy or proud about our achievement. But it is a thing which is not assured, because it may in the future the things may get reversed in the future. So this is the thing what you should understand from this slide. And this point says that India is a top recipient of remittances, because you know that India has got the potential of human resources. Our resources, our people, they are working in the entire part of the world, and India is the largest recipient of remittances. We have received $83 billion in 2019, which is phenomenal by any yardstick. So two things you have to remember, students. One is India is always witnessing the current account deficit, but for the first time India had witnessed the current account surplus. Why means what is the reason? Current account to become positive. The current account can become positive either because of trade account or because of invisible account. But in India it happened because of the trade account, and trade account also not because of exports. It is because of lowering of imports in our economy, and we are able to build some forex reserves, which has got the ability of meeting some 18 months of imports, which means India has got the ability of import cover for 18 months. So these are the significant things which happened in this segment under the external sector topic. Now the next one is the same thing, forex reserves. India has got the all-time record high of 586 billion as the forex reserves in our economy. So India is able to build because of the current account surplus, not only current account surplus, and because of the capital account inflows also. You know that capital account main components are FDI and FPI, foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment. India has got huge inflows of foreign portfolio investments. Even during the pandemic times, it led to the accumulation of forex reserves, and India was able to build the forex reserves of 586 billion, which is capable of meeting 18 months of imports, which is able to with which we could be able to make payments for 18 months. So that is the capability what we have. So we achieved this status with the help of the forex reserves what we have with our RBI. Now next one. The next point is the point which help you to understand the RBI's interventions in the economy. So what is that? So when we have the more capital account surplus, or when we have more current account surplus, then what may be the net outcome? The net outcome is we will be having more inflow of foreign currencies in our economy. When all the foreign currencies, when they get converted into rupees, then this will lead to more money supply in our economy. And along with that, this will lead to appreciation of our rupee also. When the rupee appreciates, this will affect the exports of our economy. That this logic and all you would have studied during your prelims exam preparation. But here the RBI considered that this is not the right time to let the rupee appreciate. So when all the foreign currency which is coming to my economy, when it gets converted into rupee, this will lead to the scenario of rupee appreciation, which the RBI did not wanted to have. So what the RBI did, they wanted to prevent the one-side appreciation of the rupee. To do that, whatever the foreign currencies came to our country, or whatever inflow we had in our economy, it got absorbed by the RBI, and then RBI got them stocked as the forex reserves in our country. This led to the increase in the forex reserves, and this prevented the one-sided appreciation of the rupee. Because, for example, I was telling you, India was having current account surplus, India was having huge inflows in the capital account, India was able to build the forex reserves. So these were the points which I was explaining in the previous segment. So automatically you may be having the question on your mind, sir, if all the thing happens, then automatically Indian rupee would have got appreciated. But rupee did not appreciate. So what is the reason? Because when all the foreign currencies which entered into our economy, when it got converted into the corresponding rupee, then India would have got more money supply, and automatically rupee would have got appreciated. Because when you sell dollar and buy rupee, what you are doing? You are selling dollar and you are buying rupee. So you are creating demand for rupee, which will lead to appreciation. But RBI did not allow this to happen in our economy. They prevented this by buying all the dollars. Because you know that we follow the mechanism of intervention, but the dirty intervention, which means that we are following the floating mechanism, but dirty float, or we call our mechanism as a managed float in our economy. Only when the foreign currency market goes to any extreme, at the time RBI intervenes as a market participant. So this justifies the reason why the rupee did not appreciate even during the heavy inflows of foreign currencies through FDI and FPI. Okay, so this is the point which you should remember for the examination. Then about the external debt. Here the survey says that the overall external debt of the world stands at 89 trillion, the overall debt. You know that more than 24 or 24.5, approximately take it as 24%. 24% of this overall debt of the world goes to the US, because the top debtor of the country is US. Then, okay, when you take the India, so you know that India's overall debt is 556.2 billion. India's debt stands at 556.2 billion, which we could be easily manage with the resource what we are having with the RBI. And with regard to this debt, and what are the forms we have the debts, which means debt means it is the money which we have borrowed from other country. This is about the external debt only I am talking about, not the internal debt. Then what are the ways we have borrowed? So here the survey says that the highest external debt is in the form of external commercial borrowing. It is a preliminary examination segment. You have to remember, this can be asked in the examination. Most of the external debt is held by India in the form of ECB, which means 556 is the overall debt. Out of this, more than 200 billion is held in the form of ECB. You need not remember these figures, just for your understanding I am telling you these points. Then NRA deposit, second level, then trade credit, third level, then government debt stands at the fourth level. So these are the external debts of India. So the survey explains, tells about these points. Then external debt to GDP in India. So India's external debt when compared to the India's GDP, it was 38.7% during 1992 period, and then now it has come down to 20.6% current level. So it came down to 17 also, then actually got mild acceleration. Then now it stands at the level of 20.6, and here we have done a comparison between the other countries. With China, what is the level? And then with Indonesia and then other countries. So what is the level of India? So here the point is, we have this China, this is the blue one is India. So we are little ahead of China. Other than that, we are performing better than Brazil, Mexico, and then the optimal level is this. So India's external debt is way lower than the optimal level, which was higher than the optimal level during the years of 1990. You know about the year of BOP crisis. That's all. That's the last time. Then India considered that we should bring this external debt as minimum as possible. So this external debt as a ratio of GDP was 38.7%. So this data is actually very convincing. 20.6 when optimal level stands at 35%. But India's level is 20.6, and along with that, the external reserves or the foreign currency reserves, what we have with the RBI is enough to meet the external debt of our country. So these are the supporting points which are convincing points which are dealt in the survey. Then the next one, students, foreign debt and Laffer curve relationship. So here I am going to introduce a new concept. There is a concept in economics, students. What is that concept? There is a concept called as a debt overhang. What is the meaning of the word debt overhang? Means when you borrow more from other countries. First let me write the word very clearly, okay? Debt overhang. Okay, this is the term what I am talking about. So what is the meaning of the word debt overhang is, when you borrow more foreign debt, your country will automatically get into a trap. So which will give less room for you to operate. In the future, you may not be having more space for growth. So considering this scenario, the country's performance, everything will become country will start underperforming. So all the prospects will get affected for the country because of higher debt. That is, concept is called as a debt overhang. So don't borrow more. But the Laffer curve concept on foreign debt. What is a Laffer curve? Laffer curve already you would have dealt in the public finance. What is a Laffer curve concept? So the tax rate of a country, when it is very lower, it is also bad for the country. When it is very higher, it is also bad for the country. So there is a certain level called as the optimal level, which means lower level also you'll be getting less revenue, and then higher level also you'll be getting less tax revenue. In between the low and higher, there is optimal level. So where you can generate maximum tax revenue. Same angle. Foreign debt, when it is very lower, it is also bad for the country. Very higher is also bad for the country. But there is optimum level where the things will be very positive for the country. This you can use in a more productive manner. So that in that way the survey argues. Foreign debt has got some Laffer curve connection. Lower debt is also not good. It's not going to give you any benefit to the country. And higher debt is also harmful. This will lead to debt overhang. But in between, there is a level called as optimal level. Optimal level is always good to the economy. So this is the connection of Laffer curve concept on foreign debt in a country. And the survey says that India's level is optimum or lower than the optimum. So it is not going to make any harm to our economy. Then in the external sector, to support the people, what were the measures taken by the government to support the exports? Production linked incentive, and you know about remission of duties, because earlier we were having the measures like merchandise export scheme from India, MEIS, and then service exports from India scheme. So these schemes were not WTO compliant. So recently we introduced a scheme called as RODTEP, which is a WTO compliant scheme. So these are the schemes, and then logistics infrastructure got improved in our economy, and then many digital initiatives, so that there won't be any more time won't be consumed in getting the formalities done. So these were the small incentives which I mentioned here. So apart from this, when you look at the document, we got the many more initiatives of the government to promote the exports. So these are the points what you have to remember with respect to the chapter number 3 of 3 in volume 2. Okay, with this I am completing the chapter number 3 in volume 2. So external sector, so let me have a small brief recap of the overall chapter. So the recap is, so external sector witnessed a downturn, and then external sector, we all know that the world trade barometer index was very weak during the pandemic time, and then we hit the revival button quickly, and then everything, the trade resumed. And then we learned about the current account scenario, and then we learned about this India's BOP reserves, forex reserves, and then about external debt of India, and then about export initiatives of the government of India. All these things we covered in the external sector. Now let's step into the chapter number 4. Chapter number 4 is all about monetary measures taken in our country during the pandemic time. Monetary measures. So what is the overall understanding of this chapter? Let me explain, then let's get into the chapter. So the chapter says that the monetary measures were very supportive during the pandemic time. So and then it was the policy measures were highly accommodative for the growth of the economy, and then the liquidity was adequate in the economy. And then overall problem what we had witnessed during the pandemic time was the government was taking, government means, so here the RBI was taking the measures to increase liquidity, trying to pump in more money by reducing the CRR, by reducing the repo rate, everything, all the measures RBI was taking. But even after all the measures, the transmission mechanism was not adequate. The banks were not coming forward to lend the money to the borrowers. So what the banks were doing means, whatever the reduction done by the RBI, when the RBI reduced CRR, when the RBI reduced SLR, the surplus money, what the banks got, they did not lend to the people. Instead, they parked the money with the RBI. So whatever the surplus the bank had, they parked the money with RBI. So how the banks can park the surplus money with RBI? You know, the window called as reverse repo. So most of the money came back to RBI. As a result, this money did not enter the economy in the form of the credit. So there was a heavy drop in the credit flow of the economy, what the RBI did not wanted to have, did not wanted to witness in the economy. So the credit flow was very lower in the economy. And then the transmission mechanism got impaired because all the measures done by the RBI were not yielding in the economy because the money went back to the RBI. And then apart from that, the government yield, the government securities, the yield got dropped in the economy. Yield got dropped for the short-term securities, but it remained unaffected or least affected for the long-term securities. And then we have a concept called as a call money. Call money means for the overnight borrowing, 0 to 14. Then we have a concept called as a corridor, call money corridor. And this chapter says that it remained in a more comfortable zone. And then sometimes the call money rate went lower than the corridor. What is the inference is? When it goes lower than the corridor, it indicates that there is more money supply in the economy. Okay, so chapter number 4, monetary management and financial intermediation. So all the points what I have told you now, so let's understand them with the help of the slides. Monetary policy remained more supporting or more accommodative in 2020. Then RBI took many measures like OMOs, long-term repo operations, and targeted long-term operations, etc. to manage the liquidity situation in the economy. We know about these measures: OM, open market operations, long-term repo, up to 3 years lending. So all the operations done by the RBI. Then the credit growth. As we have seen, the credit growth got slowed in the economy, slowed down to 6.7% as on January 21, which the RBI did not wanted to witness in the economy. But the banks were reluctant to lend to the people, lend to the economy. So they parked their funds with RBI under the reverse repo mechanism. So the overall lending was witnessing a broad slowdown. This is the sectoral bank credit growth. So here agriculture is a green color represents agriculture. Then industry the credit growth was very low. Then services red. Then personal loans. So everything comparatively it went down. The credit growth went down in our economy, which the RBI did not wanted to witness. Wanted to increase, but it decreased because the banks were reluctant because of uncertainty in the economy. Uncertainty and risk scenario in the economy. Then this talks about the impaired liquidity transmission. So what is the meaning of this slide? Whatever liquidity measure taken by the government, it did not yield any results. Why? Because whatever the increase in the money supply happened in the economy, most of the money went back to RBI under the reverse repo mechanism. As a result, most of the money supply increase measures done by the RBI did not have much impact on the overall economy because the transmission mechanism got impaired or disrupted because of the lack of interest among the banks. So it is a very important point. What you should remember, most of the money went back to RBI under the reverse repo window. This you should remember. The next one is in the deposit and lending rates. Because you know that when the RBI reduces the repo rate, correspondingly the impact we can witness in the deposit rates, lending rates, all the areas. So here, even though the credit flow was very slow, but the banks were transmitting the impact of the policy rates on the deposit as well as on the lending rates of our economy. These two things were moving in the right direction as per the expectation of RBI. But that's not the case with the overall credit growth and with the overall money transmission mechanism of our economy. So deposit and lending rates, so they witnessed easy money policy scenario in the economy. Then about the government securities. Short-term securities had witnessed drop in their yield, whereas there was no or least impact on the long-term securities. Short-term securities yield got affected. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 year. The short-term securities yield got affected because of short-term uncertainty in the economy. Okay. Next one, WACR. I was telling you about the concept of call money. Call money is the window through which banks can borrow for 0 to 14 days. So here the rate will increase or decrease according to the level of money supply in the economy. Higher the money supply, this will go down. Lower the money supply, this will increase. So here this is the corridor, which means based on repo and reverse repo, these things will get set. So it was in a comfortable zone. It was in the corridor. It was not that much disturbing or it was not that much fluctuating. But here we have witnessed the drop in the rates also, which means drop will happen only when there is less demand for money, or drop will happen only when there is excess money supply in the economy. So this slide conveys us or tells us that we were having adequate money supply in our economy during the crisis time. As a result, even the call money rate, it went down or went lower than the corridor. So this is the inference what we can take from this slide. Now comes the next one. We know about the acceleration of digital payments during the pandemic times because the people were not comfortable to do the physical spending. So the digital payment got improved, and you know about the index framed by the RBI. The digital payment index. Here I think I did not have given this slide, but I given this. Why means preliminary examination angle. Sometimes the components of digital payment index. What are the components? So these are the components. So you should remember this. Payment enablers and payment infrastructure, and payment infrastructure on demand side and supply side. Then payment performance, consumer centricity. So these are the subcomponents based on which digital payment index is framed by RBI. And according to this index, so India's performance, it got increased 153.47 and 207.4, which means from the base level of 100, it went up. The transactions got accelerated. Look at the acceleration of digital payments in our economy. So most of the payments, it took place in the digital way, which is understood through the digital payment index of RBI. Okay, so these are the understandings what we get from this chapter. Then the last one is, what are the regulatory measures taken by the government in the banking sector or in the monetary stances? The banks, the government took the measure of merging the PSBs, and MSME loans got restructured. Some of the regulatory measures connected to this chapter are merger of PSBs, restructuring of MSME loans, and large exposure, credit exposure level got increased, export credit enhancement, and then benchmarking the loans with the external rates, then regulating the urban cooperative banks by after the amendment of Banking Regulation Act. So these are the regulatory measures which are connected to this chapter. Okay, so at the last, during the concluding segments, government has talked about these measures taken by the government in this sector during the pandemic times. Okay, with this we are finishing the chapter number 4. So what is the overall understanding of chapter number 4? The monetary policy remained more accommodative during the pandemic time. But even after all the measures took by RBI, the transmission mechanism was very poor. It was not that much yielding in the economy. Why? Because most of the banks were reluctant to lend. They parked their money back with RBI. But in deposit and lending rates, it was quite comfortable. The transmission mechanism was working out, was happening in those areas. And then regarding the WACR, weighted average call money rate. What is WACR means? Weighted average call money rate of India. There it was very comfortable because it indicates the level of money supply in the economy. Then about the government yields in our economy. All these things we understood from the chapter number 4. Now comes the chapter number 5. Chapter number 5. What is chapter number 5? Chapter number 5 is very simple, student. It talks about the prices and inflation of our economy. Let me give an overall understanding. Let's understand the point with the help of the slides. What is the overall understanding is, the survey document says that inflation during the pandemic time was mainly due to food factor. Food inflation was food was the driving factor for the inflation during the time in our economy. All the other areas we are not having that much inflation in our economy. That is the point number 1. What was driving the food inflation? Because of the reason is because of the supply side shock during the pandemic time. The production got affected because of that, or else import got affected. So the most of the country, you know that India is a importer of the oil seeds, everything. So when the imports got affected, or in supply side, you know that in India very frequently we get hit by the onion price shock. So why the onion price escalate during the months of August to November? These things and all we'll learn in the coming segments. So it was understood that the main factor for the inflation during the time was food inflation, but later on it got controlled during the months of October, November, December. It got stabilized in our economy. So how we understood that stabilization? One from the data, and then you know about the Thalynomics. So what is the cost of the meal? So in the previous economic survey, so we had a separate chapter on Thalynomics. So what is the cost of the per plate meal in India? So the survey says that the cost of the per plate meal came down during the later months of the crisis. So it says that the inflation got stabilized in our economy. And then the survey also, this chapter argues that in India, we are very frequently we are having the higher rate of inflation because of food. And food is given more weightage in the inflation. Is it right? Is it now are we in the right time or in the right scenario to revise this concept? Because whether should we give the same importance to the food in the future, or should we give less importance to the food factor in framing the inflation? Or the survey asked the question, is it the right time to move to the core inflation? Because earlier we know that we are following the WPI, then we came to CPI. CPI is also known as headline inflation. Now the survey makes the question, is it the right time, shall we move on to the core inflation? Is it right for India, or is it a wrong idea? And then what was the inflation scenario across the states? Whether we had inflation only in the particular states or in the entire country? What was the regional variation? So all these things are discussed in this chapter. Okay, let's have a look at those points with the help of the slides. Now first one, global level, we are not having the higher level of inflation. Inflation was controlled due to the drop in the petroleum prices, and the economic activity was very subdued. That is a global picture. But in India, we were having inflation. Why? Because of food, mainly driven by food, and mainly due to the vegetable prices. We were having inflation in our economy, but it also got stabilized in the later months of October, November, December, or during the December, it got stabilized in our economy. This you should remember. Food inflation got stabilized in our economy. So this slide tells about this picture. Then comes the next one. What are the components? We know that food is the factor which was driving the inflation. So within the CPI, because we frame the index based on the different components, subcategories. So what are the different factors which contributed? So here it tells about, okay, so food and beverages, how much it contributed. Food and beverages contributed for this much of inflation. Then about the clothing and footwear. So here we understand that food is the major contributor for the inflation. Remaining things contributed only for this level. All the other things combined together contributed to this level, but the food contributed to the more than 60% of the inflation in our economy. And then, so this chart tells about the overall inflation. For example, the black line indicates the headline inflation of our economy and yellow indicates the core inflation. What is core inflation? From headline, if you deduct the inflation of highly fluctuating food commodities, then the resultant one is core, because this is highly fluctuating. When you deduct the food components, then the resultant one is a core inflation. Core is given in the yellow color. Next one is the green is the food. So what you can understand, green is the one which got picked up during the time of pandemic. The core, yellow, is always stable. So this gives the room for the argument, is it right time to go to the core inflation for making macroeconomic decisions in our economy? Because the going for the headline inflation is giving some wrong directions for the policy makers. So we'll get back to the question at the end. Okay, get once again. So here what you understand from this slide is core inflation remains stable, and then the CPI inflation is moderate. But here the food factor was the main driving, because it contributed more to the inflation of our economy. Then rural and urban difference. So what is the point we have to understand from this slide is, during the early days, when we are having inflation in the urban area, it was very higher than the inflation in the rural area, which means CPI urban was having higher inflation than CPI rural. But here the survey says that somehow the CPI urban and rural data got converged. Both the data, somehow they came closer to each other and difference was not that much. And this convergence also took place only in the food factors. Remaining areas, we have witnessed the divergence in other components. So here they're telling about the rural-urban difference, how the inflation got converged. Rural-urban difference, how it got minimized. So the point what you understand is, rural-urban difference got minimized in our country. And then the thali cost. So as I have told you, so the cost of the per plate meal came down in our country. The thali cost came down. This shows the drop or stabilization of the prices in our country. Then regional variation. Across the states, some states were having 3.2% during the financial year, and some states inflation was at the level of 11%. So we were having regional variation also. So it is the point mentioned in this chapter. We are having regional variations in the inflation across the states, 3.2 to 11%. Then the same point, as we are giving more weightage to the food is driving the inflation. So is it the right time to go for the core inflation? The same point is mentioned here, is discussed in this slide. More weightage is given for the food. Should we revise the weightage? So we should think about this. In this angle, the points are given in this slide. More weightage for food. Students, just listen. So in the writing, I think, so I'm moving the slides very quickly. So you may not be having the time to write the notes. If you start writing, then the time what I'm giving may not be adequate. So don't worry, contents I'll deliver. Okay. Next one is why the price spikes in August to November. Why we know that frequently onion prices spike up in the month of August to November. Why we have this scenario? Now we all know that onion actually when they are harvested during the Rabi season. Rabi harvest takes place in the month of March, sometimes goes up to May. So the output what you derive from the Rabi harvest, so because the harvest takes place in the month of March up to May, these products will be available in the market till the month of June and July. So the products which were harvested in the month of March, April, May will be available in the market between June and July. Then the market will not be having the stock after the July. So from August, September, October, you'll be having the spike in the onion prices because of the supply shock of onion. And then you know that next one, okay, when the Kharif season, when it starts, okay, the Kharif harvest will take place in the month of October and goes up to December. So from October onwards, the products will come into the market. So the price of onion will get stabilized in the month of October. But in between, you'll be having the spike in the price of onion. So here comes the question, okay, if the harvest gets over by the month of March, May, then why can't we store them? Because here India has got the problem in the storing of onion, because onion, unlike the other things, has got needs some special storage facilities. So India should focus on this infrastructure, storage infrastructure. That's the need of the hour. And along with that, the survey points out that India took the measure of implementing some curbs in our economy. For example, banning the exports and putting some restrictions on the imports. So like this, India took some measures. So we got a long way to go in addressing these constraints. And why the price spike means because we don't have the stock during these months. We should focus on the post-harvest or in the storage infrastructure. So like this, so they have justified the reason why the price spike in the month of August to November. Because the Rabi harvest takes place in the month of March to May. It will be available only up to June, July. Then we'll be having the shortage of products in the market. The supply once again will come to the market from October only, October or November. That's the reason why we have the supply shock in the onion. Then the curbs taken by the government to control the price. Normally the banning of exports of onions and imposing stock limit on the traders. Then the restrictions on easing of restrictions on imports of pulses, so that we'll be having the free flow of pulses to the market, which will increase the supply. Like this, some of the measures, some of the price stabilization curbs. What are the price stabilization curbs? Like their question is asked in the examination, then you can write the points. Price stabilization curbs. Then import dependence. When you depend more on the imports, then what impact this will have on the inflation of a country? When you depend more on the imports, then imports will become dominant. Then this will have impact on the price of the products. When you depend more on the imports, then this will be having impact on the domestic producers and having impact on the domestic products also. This will have more confusion in the domestic economy. So you should have more clarity about the import policy. If you don't have more clarity, then this will have impact on the price of imported products and also will have impact on the domestic products and domestic producers. That is the argument of the economic survey. So import dependence inflation. When we depend more, then we'll be having the very frequent. We'll be having the we will be facing the impact of imports on the inflation of our economy. Then global economic policy uncertainty and gold prices. So here the survey says that why the gold prices is going higher during the time of uncertainty, because the economy is undergoing uncertain times. But during this time, why the gold price alone is going higher and higher? Because we all know that when the economic situation is uncertain, people what they do is when the economy is good, what they will do, they will invest on the companies. But when the economy is bad, companies they won't be performing. So they will look for some avenues to stock their money, to invest their money. Automatically what they will do is they invest on the gold. So most of the money inflow, capital flows will divert towards the gold. This will increase the demand for the gold across the world. When the demand increases, automatically the price increase, because that is the experience of the past. Whenever the economy is in a recession or in a downturn, we will be witnessing the increase in the gold prices. But economy, when it comes back to the normalcy, the investments will be taken back from the gold and which will be invested in the other investments. So that is the reason why the gold price goes higher during the economic downturn or during the economic recession. So here this is the reason. So why the gold price, when everything gets stabilized, then the price will come down. If there is any sign of any uncertainty, then the gold will move up. So not only this is the only point, this is one among the multiple points why the gold price will increase in the economy during the time of recession or uncertainty times. Then comes the last question, which I asked 2 or 3 times during this chapter. Headline inflation means CPI or core from the CPI excluding the food products, which is good for our country, for our economy. The survey argues that headline inflation or core inflation, because now many people they are saying that headline inflation is misleading because it gives some higher figure. So is it the right time to go for the core inflation? Like that the people they are arguing, but the survey makes the argument, places the argument in such a way. In a country like India, in a developing country, we have to adopt a particular practice. But developed countries, they can go for a different approach. What is that approach? Developed countries, they can go for core inflation, because they are the people, they will be having more capability to, they will be having more purchasing power. So and then the production capabilities, they would have ensured in their economy. They won't be having much supply side disruptions. So here in developed economies, when you go along with the core inflation, it won't be misleading. But in a developing economy, when you go with the core inflation, the major component of food is neglected. Food will be having the more impact on the majority of the people in a developing economy. When you exclude that, it won't give right picture what the impact the people will be having. So you'll be having data where there is no inflation, but people will be suffering. So, but in developed economies, people, they won't suffer because of food, or because of increase in the food prices. So relying on the core may be a better choice for the developed economies, but for developing economy, relying on the overall headline inflation is the right strategy. In this angle, the survey places the argument. Okay, now we got an idea. So inflation happened during the pandemic time is due to what factor? Due to food factor, especially within the food, vegetable prices, everything. And then what is the rural urban CPI scenario, whether it is diverging or it's converging. And then about the headline inflation or core inflation, which is the right method to follow in the developing as well as the developed economy. So like this, we have learned about the points. Okay, this is the core plot of the this chapter, fifth chapter, chapter number 5. Now comes the chapter number 6. What is the chapter number 6? This is sustainable development and climate change. I'm not going to teach this chapter. Why? Because already this chapter has been dealt in detailed way already in our current affairs previous session. In our environment class, current affairs, already sir would have taken this chapter in detail. So here we are not going to learn about this segment once again. So we are going to skip this chapter. For that, the environment current affairs, what you learned in the class or whatever you studied, will be more than adequate. Okay, so we can skip this. So now next one is 7th one, chapter number 7. What the chapter number 7 is all about? Agriculture and food management. What was the scenario of agriculture sector? Because we all know that during the pandemic time, the only sector which had witnessed the growth was agriculture. Because we had some silver lining prospects in agriculture sector only. All the other sectors got severely affected. We're going to learn about this sector. So in agriculture, point number 1, this is the only sector where we had 3.4% growth during the time of pandemic. And then, what is the gross capital formation in agriculture? Because this you should remember, because either in the mains or prelims is a very important thing what you should understand. What is the overall gross capital formation trend in our country, in our economy? So the gross capital formation trend in our agriculture economy is always fluctuating. For example, questions may be asked in the examination. Gross capital formation in agriculture is increasing, is decreasing. So the survey says that it is fluctuating. Sometimes it's increasing, sometimes it's decreasing. That is the trend what we have in our economy. What is gross capital formation? It is the total investments done by a country to increase its assets, capital assets. It is not the revenue expenditure. What is the total overall capital expenditure done for the buildings, for the machines, and then tractors. All the productive investments on the capital goods done by the country is called as a gross capital formation. So the survey says that gross capital formation is not going down, it's actually fluctuating for our economy. It's going down and then coming down and then going high and then coming down. So the point is it is fluctuating for our economy. It is not following any trend. It is not ascending, it is not descending. So it is a point number 1, what you should remember. Exam angle, question if it is given, it is continuously increasing. It's wrong statement. Continuously decreasing, wrong statement. It is fluctuating for our economy. Then with regard to the food production. Food production means you know about the food grain. Food grain means what are the major food grains? We talk about rice, wheat, and then about the maize, jowar, bajra. So what is the scenario of food grain production is? We are able to have continuous production of the food grains in our economy, even during the pandemic times. India was able to achieve the record high of 296 million tons during the time of pandemic. So we are able to achieve the record production during the pandemic times of more than 297 million tons. We are able to produce during the pandemic. And then this we can observe from this chart. Here, look here. Before the pandemic, 18, 19, 17, 18, 16, 17, 15, 16, we are having stability of production. Almost, okay, this one is for the rice. Gray one is rice. This one is wheat. This one is rice. This one is wheat. rice, wheat, which means almost everything is stable, same level, and then comparatively it got increased. So the survey says that food grain production remained continuously stable for India. It never declined, and then it got it encountered marginal increase in our economy. So this is the point what you can understand from this slide. Next one is agricultural credit. So here the survey has conveyed a very important point. This may be asked in the examination. To start with, we all know that for 2019-20, the government has fixed the agriculture credit as 13,50,000 crores. But for the current year, it is around 15 lakh crores. That is a target set by the government. This and all, you might have known the figures. But here, what is the most disturbing point which is considered by the government is? Which is the point government considers the most disturbing scenario in agriculture is? Here the government says that most of the agriculture credit delivered in our economy has been delivered only to the southern states of India. Northern states, and especially within the northeastern states, they are not able to avail the bank credit. More than 40% of the bank credit delivered by the banks has gone to the southern states. Northeastern states, they have received only 2% of the bank credit. It's a very important point which you should remember for the preliminary examination. Now look at the map. So here they are given some colors. For example, the green color are the areas where above 7.5%. So Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and all able to avail more than 7.5% of overall credit. So here, okay, these things, okay, the given in the orange color is 0 to 0.3%. Overall credit is 0 to 0.3%. These are the states. And these are the states where 5 to 7.5%. So here 40% in southern states versus 2% overall in northeastern states. And then before getting into the next slide, what is the reason? What is the reason mentioned in the survey? Why the northeastern states are not able to avail the maximum credit? So here the gross cropped area is mentioned as the main important reason. So when you have the more number of gross cropped area, then you are able to avail the credit. But the northeastern states, they are following the community holding or the community pattern of cultivation. So they are not able to submit the documents to avail the credit, and they are not able to have access to the Kisan credit cards also. Because Kisan credit cards are the recent instruments used by the government to provide agriculture credit in our economy. But recent times, no, not recent times, okay, but the northeastern states are not able to avail the credit cards because of this practices what they are following. So there is a reason mentioned by the economic survey. One is the gross cropped area is directly proportional to the agriculture credit. When you have the more gross cropped area, you are able to get more credit. And then second one, the individual farming is acting as one of the factor for availing the credit. The community farming is not helping the farmers to go for the Kisan credit cards. These are the points, 2 points mentioned in the survey for the poor penetration of agriculture credit in the northeastern states. Then the survey tells about the agriculture infrastructure fund. We all know that this fund is operational from 2020 and goes up to 29-30. So what is the purpose of this fund? We all know that this fund is dedicated by the government for building the post-harvest management infrastructure and community farming assets in our economy. Almost 1 lakh crores is allocated by the government for implementing this fund. This 1 lakh crores will be distributed through the banks and financial institutions to the interested participants. The interested participants may be a farmer, maybe a farmer producer organizations, so maybe a primary agriculture credit societies. So now they can get and they can utilize the funds, or individual owners, anyone can come forward to build the agriculture infrastructure. And when they avail the loan, 3% will be given as an interest subvention. What is interest subvention? From the overall interest rate, 3% will be given as a subsidy part. And then this, along with the 3%, these loans are eligible for credit guarantee. What is a credit guarantee? When the borrower fails to repay, the amount is ensured by the government through the credit guarantee. We all know that we have a particular fund dedicated for the credit guarantee. What is the fund? The fund is Credit Guarantee Trust Fund for Micro and Small Enterprises. So when the borrower fails to repay, this fund will act as a supporting point for making the repayment on the behalf of the farmers. And for example, what is the maximum loan up to which the credit guarantee is delivered by the government? When the loan volume is up to 2 crores, then the loans are eligible for the credit guarantee by the government. Okay, so this is about the agriculture infrastructure fund. So 3% interest subvention up to 2 crore amount for 7 years. 7 years period, 3% interest subvention will be given. More than that, 3% interest subvention will not be given. And along with that, credit guarantee is ensured through the Credit Guarantee Trust Fund. These things already would have learned before the coming to the class. Already you would have had your prior preparation. So during the time, you would have learned about this CGT MSc. Next one is MSP. We all know that MSP is a supporting mechanism given by the government to protect the farmers against the market failures. When the market price goes down, government will buy from the farmers at the MSP. So in the recent times, okay, which is the crop which has been given maximum MSP by the government? So Bajra is the crop which has been delivered 83%, which means 83% of the cost of production. You know that normally MSP is given at the rate of 50% more than the cost of production. But the survey says that recent times, okay, MSP for the Bajra has been delivered at the level of 83% more than the cost of production, followed by the Urad Dal, 64%, maize, 53%. Like that, Kharif crops, what is the MSP? Here you can understand that for Bajra alone is 83%, and then remaining crops 58, 61, like that, some variation is shown by the government. Now comes the question, why the government is showing this variation? So the survey says that variation is shown by the government mainly to address or to encourage the crop diversification. During the particular year, which crop government want the farmer to grow more? So with the particular crop, MSP will be increased by the government. So this will encourage the farmers to go for the particular crop. So country will get more production of that particular crop. Reason is crop diversification. That is the main reason for showing variation on the MSP. But the thing is, MSP itself means it will cover the cost of production. More than the cost of production, government may give for some crops. This year it may be Bajra, next year it may be some other crop. So that is the point conveyed in the economic survey document. This for the Kharif crops. Next one is for the Rabi crops. Rabi crop, the maximum MSP is given by the government for wheat. When the country has got more demand for the wheat, which means even though it's adequate, when you think that the most wheat growers are going for other crops, so to bring them back to wheat, government may follow this practice. So the wheat has been given maximum MSP, followed by rapeseed and mustard, 93% and 78, which is more than the Kharif crops. Okay, so the picture will tell you will explain you the scenario. So here we have 106% for the wheat. And then 93%, unlike the 78, some figures are given. Kindly look at this because you all would have received the soft copy from our institute. For soft copy reference, okay, you can have a look at this diagram, which will tell you about the variation in MSP between the Kharif and Rabi crops. Then crop insurance. Regarding the crop insurance, we all know that the government is implementing its most important insurance scheme called as the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And 3 things you have to remember. Here, very frequently, we are witnessing frauds in settlements. The money is not reaching the farmers. To avoid that, government has implemented Aadhaar seeding so that there won't be any duplication of beneficiary. Second point is, earlier per hectare, 15,100 was the maximum insurance delivered, but now up to 40,700 rupees per hectare. So increase in the benefit. The benefit is delivered by the government. Then earlier the scheme was compulsory to all the people, those who went for the bank loan. But now that's not the case. It is voluntary. Farmers' consent is required by the bank managers or by the people who are sanctioning the loan. Before including them in the scheme, they should get the farmer's consent. They should let the farmer to know about the scheme, inform him. Then only he can be included in the scheme. So these are the important changes happened with respect to the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Then next one is food processing industry. So regarding the food processing industry, the most important positive point is, this is the sector which is growing at the rate of 9.9% growth even during the pandemic times. Not during the pandemic times, during the normal times, this sector which was growing at 9.9, because agriculture growth is around 3%. So when all the other sectors are growing at a level lower, this sector is more promising. So the food processing sector, what are the measures taken by the government? So these things we are going to learn now. So here the point says that growing at last 5 years, not during the pandemic, during the last 5 years, this sector was growing at the rate of 9.9% when compared to the agriculture and compared to the manufacturing. Okay, so this is the scope what we have in this sector, in food processing sector, growing at 9.9% at a consistent growth rate. Then to support this food processing, government has taken some measures. What are they means? One district, one product. Taking a district and then picking a particular product and focusing on that particular product. So in the particular district, what is the raw material availability? What is the product which has got more scope to perform in the particular district? Taking one district and getting specialized in that particular product. That is one of the scheme what we have for food processing. Then second one is to reap the benefit of scale in terms of procurement of inputs. This one is for this. One district, one product. Next one is PLI scheme for food processing, which means when you show incremental production, then government will give you incentive, which will incentivize the people to become more competitive, which will help them to make more investments, world-class investments, infrastructure, production, globally increasing the competency. These are the objectives of PLI. Then Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana. It's not a one scheme, it is a umbrella scheme, because within the scheme we have many sub-components like mega food parks and focusing on infrastructure. Like that, many more things are compiled under the Kisan Sampada. So these are the initiatives taken by the government for food processing sector. Okay. So we are learning about many more things, students. So that's why, okay, I'm not able to give you time to copy. Because once the things are conveyed to you, then you take your own time to copy the things. My intention is to convey the things at the same time, should not consume more time, because last time, okay, 2 things classes we have consumed for volume 1. So, but now I want to convey everything, but in a span of 3.5 hours time. So I have taken the decision to reduce the copying time. Earlier I gave more time to copy, so it consumed 5 minutes for each and every slide. So the contents will be delivered to you. So now we can listen the class. Now next one, recent agriculture reforms, a remedy, not a malady. So here the survey says that in India we are having multiple agriculture problems. To address all the problems, government enacted the 3 acts. One is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce. Under this, farmers, their hands were tied earlier. They were not allowed to make the sale outside the APMCs. But now they were given the freedom. They can sell to anyone. This gives the flexibility to the farmers. This gives the command to the farmers. So this is not a bane to the farmers. This is a boon to the farmers. So the farmers, those who were not having multiple opportunities, they are given multiple opportunities. Doors got opened, marketing doors. So that is the premise of Act number 1. Second act is, earlier when the farmer gets into a contract with any buyer, sometimes the buyer may abide the contract. Sometimes the buyer may not abide the contract. At that time, farmers were not having any mechanism to support them when the people move away from the contract farming agreements. But here we are trying to empower the farmers by bringing some regulatory mechanism for the contract farming to regulate them, which will stay as a win-win situation both for the farmers as well as for the buyers. That is the plot of the second act. Third one is essential commodity. Earlier we were having more restrictions on essential commodity, which was applying brakes on the agriculture infrastructure, because the people are not coming forward, because when they plan to store the commodities, the government will act on them. Then government will stop them from storing, citing the essential commodity reasons. But now government gives the flexibility. When the government will act? Only during the time of national emergency, during the war or natural calamities, or when there is a heavy inflation of commodities. Remaining times, the people, they got the flexibility to store them or stock them. So the country will get the storage facility. So to get the storage facility, people will do the investments. So when the things are stocked in the proper manner, and the future inflation could be addressed. So it is a win-win situation for all the for the agriculture and for the farmers and for the people involved, the participants, those who are building the infrastructure, and for the government. So the acts are not the bane. The acts are going to act as a boon to the farmers. Okay, that's how the survey concludes. And then they are justifying this by saying that it is not the measure taken by the government in recent times. Earlier, we were having multiple measures or multiple committee recommendations. So it was a prolonged chart, okay, a prolonged timeline of events. It goes back to be more than 15-20 years. So now the government has taken the bold decision of implementing the reforms in agriculture. In this angle, the survey concludes that the agriculture sector is going to witness a structural change because of the reforms. But we have the counter arguments also by the people. The government may withdraw the MSP, or APMCs may get diluted. Then instead in the place of the middleman, so we may have some legal experts who may replace the place of middleman between the company and between the farmers. Like that, we have the counter arguments for those everything. Government has rejected those arguments because government has not accepted those criticism. No, these are the assumptions. But everything we have planned only for the welfare of the farmers. That is a government answer. We have to wait and see how the things will turn around in the future. Now comes the chapter number 8. Chapter number 8. What the chapter number 8 is all about. Okay, now the chapter number 8, what it is all about. You can copy the heading. Industry and infrastructure. Industry and infrastructure. We all know that industry, actually the sector went down and then it came up. How we say that it went down and came up? Because most of the indicators went down and then most of the indicators showed the signs of recovery. So this slide says that the broad-based recovery in the IAP data and all the other supporting indicators showed the downtrend and then showed the recovery, dip and recovery in the sector. So this shows the resilient capabilities of our economy. So here the chart says that how the sectoral performance of industry, how was the sectoral performance of industry in the past. The first one, the thing which is given in the orange color at the bottom, it represents the mining sector. So mining sector was, during the years of 2012, was occupying the space of percentage of 3.2 in the economy. Now it is occupying 1.7, which means the growth of mining is declining in the economy. Then second one is manufacturing. This one is mining. Second one is manufacturing. Manufacturing was occupying a space of 17.4 during 2012. Now it is occupying 14.5 only. So it is witnessing a decline. Because we know that the secondary sector means it is made up of all these components. Because IAP data is comprised of the mining, manufacturing, electricity, because it tells about the industrial progress. So within the IAP data, what are the components and what is the trend of IAP data? So this chart is all about. Next one is electricity. Electricity was having 2.3% growth during the 2012, but now 2.7, which means moderate increase in electricity, fuel and other components. And regarding the construction, 9.6 was its share, but now it is only 6.9. It is declining. Except the electricity, all the other sectors. So overall trend is declining. So this is the area where we have to focus on, or the area where we have to address. Okay, so this chart tells about where the problem is in the IAP data. And then this is the scenario during the pandemic time. As we all know, IAP data got a huge hit during the pandemic and it revived back during the periods of November and December. V-shaped recovery, which we have seen in the previous class. Same thing we witnessed in the IAP data also. Next one. The ease of doing business. This already we have dealt in the previous class, but anyway, in the industry sector, let's bring it once again. India's rank, okay, we have got significant improvement in the ranking in the recent 5 to 6 years. So India survey says that, okay, India has improved significantly in the recent years, but doesn't mean that India has outperformed in all the areas. There are some areas where we are underperforming, where we are lagging in some areas. What are those areas? For example, here look at this chart. 13. For example, investor protection, we are doing good. We are 13. And then regarding getting electricity, we are going good, 22. But look at these areas. Enforcing contracts, our rank is 163. Enforcing contracts, we got miles to go. Here 13, 22, but here our rank is 163 in enforcing contracts. Because connect this point with the previous chapter, the process reforms, where we got more rules which is delaying the procedures. And the next one is 154 in registering a property. India's rank is 154. Then next one is 136 for starting a business. How long will it take to comply with all the procedures? So these are the areas where we are lagging. Starting a business, registering a property, then enforcing contracts. These are the areas where we are lagging, and we got some areas where we are outperforming when compared to our past. So these are the areas where we have to retain. These are the areas where we have got where we should do more improvements. Okay, that is the point we understand from this slide. Then this slide talks about the PLI incentive. We all know about the PLI. You would have studied about this in detail in the current affairs. Production linked incentive, the scheme which is considered as the most important initiative by the government. So the main aim of the scheme is to improve the competing ability of our country, to bring in more investments, and then to increase our production capability. So we got multiple focus under the PLI scheme. So this is one of the initiative taken by the government to increase the production aspects in this sector. Then PSE rationalization. We all know that what is PSE? Public sector enterprises. The units where the government ownership is more than 50%, we call them as a public sector. So we all know that in India we have got more than 366 public sector undertaking. 366 we have. But out of 366, only 256 are operational or functioning. Rest of the things are not operating itself. Within the 256, around 100 or 117, 120, I don't remember the exact number. Around 117 or 120 only profit making. Remaining are loss making. So here this tells us that the time has come for us to focus on revamping these PSEs. You know about the recent disinvestment policy of Government of India, which says that government will not have more companies, more government-owned companies in all sectors. Only in strategic sectors, government will be having its operation. That operation also limited to 1 or 4 company, which means even though the sector is strategic, government will not be having enormous public sector undertaking in the sectors. Government will be having minimum 1, maximum 4 company. And when the government has got that minimum 1 or 4, what the government will do? Government will implement these measures. Revamping the board to improve the efficiency, listing them on exchanges. Because when you get the company listed on the exchanges, automatically people will look at the performance of the company because it is closely connected to their profits. Transparency will be increased. And the next one is the performance monitoring, which will give you some idea about the performance of CPSEs. And then the sick companies, identifying them at the right time and closing them. So like that, the survey has pointed out, these are the measures which are needed to address the issues what we have in the PSEs, public sector enterprises. Okay. Then about the MSME support, we all know that recently government introduced the revision of the MSME definition. Because why? What is the logic means? When the MSME definition is kept within a smaller level, it gives scope only for the few companies. When they cross the level, they may not be eligible to avail the government benefits. But when the definition gets revised by the government, then many companies, they may be able to avail the benefits of government. They can utilize. So MSME definition got revised by the government. Then we have the Champions online platform to provide support to the MSMEs. What is champions? The abbreviation is given, expansion is given here. Creation and harmonious application of modern processes for increasing the output and national strength. Okay, which means it's an online platform. It is like a war room operations. It got a hubs and spokes model, central office at Delhi, Delhi as a hub, and spokes, almost 66 centers across the states, where you got any issues, you can contact them over internet or telephone. So they will help the MSMEs. So to address the problem, and then to support them, and then to help them. So in this angle, so Champions online platform, so is introduced by the government to support the MSMEs. Then comes the next one, Startup India. We all know about startup. It is an old concept. Regarding the startup, what are the measures taken by the government? Okay, that we are going to see in the next slide. So initiatives taken by the government of India to support the startups. When the startups, when they go for the patents or trademark registration, the government has given some rebate and tax incentives government has given to the startups, and startups intellectual property protection. So through the appellate authorities, government has ensured the support to the startups regarding the any issues or helping them in getting their intellectual property rights. And then government has started the fund of funds for the startups, which will invest on the startups when the idea is very innovative. So which will help the startups to get the adequate starting investments to start the business. And the income tax exemptions are given to the startups. And then apart from that, we have a scheme called a Startup Yatra, where the government goes to the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, and then tier 2 and tier 3 cities. They are identifying the people with a business mind and then helping them to start the business. Identifying the people with the talent, entrepreneur talent, and then helping them to start the business. Like that, government has survey has mentioned some of the startup initiatives taken by the government. Okay. Next one is FDI in non-manufacturing. You know about FDI is a foreign direct investment when it enters into our country. So they got two choices, whether they're going to invest in manufacturing or non-manufacturing. The survey says that FDIs are showing more interest in non-manufacturing only, not in manufacturing. When they show interest in manufacturing, within the manufacturing, where they show interest. So that's the next slide. So they are showing more interest in non-manufacturing, but manufacturing, what are the areas? Automobile, telecom, metallurgical, so are non-conventional areas, chemical, food processing, and then these are the areas which are shown interest by the FDI in the manufacturing sector. But in common, they are showing more interest in the non-manufacturing sector. Okay. Now, National Infrastructure Pipeline. What this slide is all about? You know about the National Infrastructure Pipeline initiative taken by the government. Under the National Infrastructure Pipeline, government is planning to build world-class infrastructure through the contribution of central government, state government, and then by the private sector. All three are going to join together and then going to implement the infrastructure schemes in India, which is going to be of top-class quality. So national, and along with that, these infrastructure investments done, which is going to be done by the government and private, is going to support the economy in the long run. Support the economy in infrastructure perspective and also in boosting the demand or revival of economy. So that is the infrastructure pipeline. So which is announced for 2020 to 25, focusing on top class, world class infrastructure projects, which will lead to investments, which will lead to employment, and which will lead to economic growth of our country. So this is about infrastructure pipeline. And then regarding the infrastructure project by sectors, energy sector, government has planned to invest 24%, and road sector 18%, urban sector 17%, railways 12%, and others 29%. Prelims area. So this slide is prelim important segment, not the mains angle. Next one is 39% of the investment is going to be done by the central government, 40% by the state government, and 21% by the private. With respect to National Infrastructure Pipeline. What the pipeline is all about is about the focusing on world-class infrastructure building in India. With this, we are concluding the chapter number 8. That's all. Remaining chapters are only 9 and 10. Oh God, we got one less content. Chapter number 9. Chapter number 9 is all about service sector. Chapter number 9 is all about service sector. We all know that service sector is one of the sector which got hit severely during the pandemic time because most of the areas are contact intensive. So when you announce the lockdown, when you announce social distancing practice, social distancing norms, then sector will get automatically hit. So contact intensive nature. And then when you look at the top 10 countries from where tourists are coming to India, Bangladesh tops the pack. Most tourists are coming from Bangladesh to India, followed by USA, UK, then Australia, Canada, China, Malaysia, Sri Lanka. Top 3 you remember. These countries account for 67% of the total foreign tourist arrivals in India. Foreign tourist arrivals normally we say as the FTA. Foreign tourist arrivals. They account for 67%. Then within India, one is domestic tourism, one is foreign tourist, international tourism. In which states most domestic tourists are going, or which states witnessing more amount of foreign tourists? That is going to be next slide. For example, most number of domestic tourists are visiting the following 5 states. They are going to Uttar Pradesh, so top in the pack, Tamil Nadu second, then Andhra Pradesh, then Karnataka, Maharashtra. These 5 states account for more than 71% of domestic tourists in our country. More than 71% of tourists are going to these 5 places. Then regarding the foreign tourists, which are the states where the many number of foreign tourists are going? Means they are coming to Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi and West Bengal. They account for 69.4% of the overall foreign tourists. Top 5 tourist destination, foreign tourist destinations in India, top 5 domestic tourist destinations in India. Then this one tells about the overall service sector at state level, UT level. Now in India, when you take all the states and UTs, for example, we take all the states and UTs, out of the 33 states and UTs taken for which are given in the survey, in 15 states, more than 50% of the GVA is coming from gross state value addition is coming from 50% is coming from in 15 states, more than 50% of the gross state value addition is coming from service sector in 15 states. And then in 8 states, service sector account for more than 60%, which means out of the total states economic activity, gross state value addition, 60% is coming from service sector. And then Chandigarh and Delhi, they stand out with a particularly high share of services in with a range of 85%, and Sikkim is the lowest. And then some states which are not mentioned here, no, even though they are lower means 30 or 40%, they are also the contribution of service sector to the overall gross state value addition or gross state domestic product, overall GSDP. The contribution rate is increasing. Comparatively, they are showing good progress also. So this is mentioned in the survey. So which means in more than 50%, half of the pack, more than 50% of the income is coming from the service sector. In 60%, in 8 states, more than 60% is coming from the service sector. And Chandigarh and Delhi, they are topping the pack, and then Sikkim at the bottom of the pack. Then this one is about the sector-wise breakdown. When you take the IT sector, IT means the core. The core IT sector contributes majority of the income from the IT sector, followed by the business process management, BPO sector. They contribute 22.5%, and software products, they contribute the balance 20, which means the core IT is the most dominating segment within the IT and IT enabled sector. Core IT contributes more than 50% of the overall output of the IT and IT enabled sector, followed by BPM and followed by other IT related software and hardware products. So this is a scenario during 14-15. So this is the scenario during 19-20. So the same thing continues. The same thing, there's no change. 55, 22, 20. Here 79, 33, which means the same order. Order remains the same. But the percentage contribution got increased. From 55, it got increased to 79.1 percentage. Subsector breakdown. Now next one is the countries to which India is doing maximum exports. Here USA stands at the top. Most of the IT-based exports are done to the USA. More than 60% of the exports are done to US. Remaining countries, they only they contribute for a lesser portion. Most of the space is occupied by the US. This is about the India's IT exports. Not only IT and IT-enabled services, BPM, business process, BPO, KPO. Next one, reforms. Recently, we all know that in the IT sector, government has introduced some reforms. What is the reforms? Earlier, government was having some telecom-based regulations in the IT sector regarding work from home restrictions, and then where they should store the data. Many restrictions we are having. Most of the restrictions were removed on them. It is one of the reforms. Second one, to protect the interest of the consumers, e-commerce, government has made some regulations. Like that, government has made some structural reforms. These reforms are going to play a huge role in the development of the service sector in the near future and also in the far future. Okay, that is a point mentioned in the survey. So next one is, you know that in the shipping sector, because when the ships are coming to India, there is a concept called a shipping turnaround. What is the meaning of the term shipping turnaround? Means when the ship reaches the port, from the date on which when they entered the port to the date on which the ship leaves the port. So, for example, when they come to the port on Monday, then they have after completing all the formalities, then they are leaving the port on Thursday. So the time is Monday. From Monday they come down. Leaving on Thursday means 4 days. So the ship turnaround time is 4 days or 3.6 days. Like that, the time will be calculated. How many hours the ship was staying there to finish all the formalities. It was around 4.67 days in India. It got reduced to 2.62. So what is the thing we expect is we want to reduce the ship turnaround time. This will make India most attractive for the ship transport. But globally the average is 0.97. But now only India has come to the level of 2.62 days. Globally the average is less than 1 day. But India from 4.67 we have come to 2.62. We were in the level of 4.67 during 2010. Now we come to 2.62 days. So we got more scope to perform in this area. So this is mentioned in the survey. And then the last one is space sector. Space sector is the one of the area where India has to focus. And then regarding the space sector, the overall investment done by India is 1.8 billion. But this expenditure allocation is not enough. Because when compared to US, the expenditure done by, or the allocation done by India is 10 times lower and 3 times lower than China. So we have to spend more in the space research. So that's mentioned in the survey. So this stays as a explanation for the previous slide. US is spending around $19.5 billion. India is spending only $1.8 billion. And China is spending $11 billion. So we have to spend more to have much more achievements in the space sector. So these are the points which are conveyed in this chapter. Now with this we are finishing the chapter number 9. Now we are going to get into the chapter number 10. What is the chapter number 10 is all about? Chapter number 10 is all about social infrastructure, about the health, about the education, about the unemployment, all these things. From these things, we know about the many more things. Already you would have learned about them in the current affairs class, in the schemes, programs and all. Here I am going to bring you some important points along. What are those points? Social infrastructure, employment and human development. Social infrastructure, employment and human development. This is the heading of the chapter. Kindly mark the heading. Okay. So in social infrastructure, the survey, actually this chapter is all about data. They mentioned what are the schemes announced by the government, nothing more conceptual in nature, everything is data. Only one point is a little bit concept oriented. All the other things are pure data. Just you can have a look at the chapter 10. So most of the chapter 10 things already would have been dealt in current affairs, would have learned through the Hindu news analysis through our channel. So here the social sector saying that India's HDA rank, it came down. Okay, so was recorded 131, and then compared to 129, okay, it came to 131. And then different indicators are given. Per capita income got increased $6,427 to $6,681. And then life expectancy at birth has improved from 69.4 to 69.7. Like that, many more things are given in the in this chapter. So what is a performance with respect to the per capita and life expectancy and mean years of schooling. So all those things are given. So here also you can have a look. Life expectancy at birth got increased from 57.9 years to 69.7 years in India. 1990, it was 57.9. Now, but actually here we are having almost the same value during the last 5 years. 68, we are in 2015, now 69. So not that much improvement, okay, but when compared to these years, it can be taken as an improvement. But in the recent time, so it's a marginal increase. Then expected years of schooling, it got increased from 7.6 to 12.2, but last 5 years, no improvement, 12.2 only. And then mean years of schooling, so it's 6.5, staying at the same level during the last 5 years. And per capita, so 6,681, and then we crossed 6,000 during 2017, and then now we are at the same level. And Human Development Index value, so it's given as 0.645. So these are the multiple indicators mentioned in this chapter. And the next one is online schooling. The document says that the most of the children education got affected during the pandemic time. So this I did not explain. We all know that how the things got affected. Even in our institute, we know that. Okay, we are manage the crisis with the help of the online platforms. But that's not possible with all the children, because we got more economically weaker. Because this is a practical thing. Moreover, you are students, you may understand this segment very easily. Because we got disparity, economic disparity, social disparity. How the things can be served to all the segments. So in our platform we can do, because you got the you're able to get connected. But that's not the case with most people, those who are living in the tribal areas or hilly areas, the children, small kids I'm talking about. So their education got affected and school dropouts, many more issues are creeping because of the disruptions happened in the school mechanism. And then changing nature of the work. So now we got the more people, they are doing earlier they are going to office, which means they are doing the job in a permanent manner. But now they are getting the project from the company, they're getting the job done, they're getting the payment. It is more comfortable to both the employers and the employees. So we call them as a gig workers, freelance workers. So this is increasing. Why it is increasing? Because the companies, to companies, employers, it is beneficial. And apart from them, this gives more space to the employees also. They got their own time, which they can manage on their own. And apart from that, the penetration of technologies, it is enabling the people to go for this platform, choose this type of work. And then the business people also, they're doing the platform, the kind of the activities. So which is also more yielding and rewarding to them. So it is a changing nature of the work. Gig and platform workers is increasing, trend is increasing in our country. And labor reforms, you know about the labor reforms. So multiple labor codes got unified, and many people has been brought under the umbrella, so that the social security benefits will be delivered to the maximum number of people in our country. So it is regarding the wage rate, regarding the environment where they are working, and then regarding the industry relations code, occupational safety. So like that, the codes on wages, relations code, occupational safety, and code on social security. All these reforms have been introduced by the government in recent times. So these are the reforms which are mentioned in the survey. So which will do the wages, will provide the minimum wages, minimum prescribed, and industry relations code. So again, the behavioral changes, and then the standards what the companies must follow. Then occupational safety, social security benefits which must be delivered to the employees. All these things are given in this chapter. Then unpaid domestic services. So here this slide acts as an answer for the question which I have shown you at the start. I have asked you that in the labor force participation rate, women are not participating more, they are not seeking for more job when compared to the men. Men labor force is around 70%, but women is around less than 20. Why? Because the survey says that comes with the answer. Say for example, you can look, this is the answer. This explains the reason for the relatively low level of female labor force participation in India. Why? Because female, they are spending most of their time in unpaid domestic services, either cooking or child care or elderly care. So they are also doing activity, but most of the activities they are doing in the unpaid domestic activities. So they're not getting time to go for any economic activities, so they're not showing interest for going to job. So their participation rate is very less. So the effects are consumed by the unpaid domestic services. So like that, okay, so this point is mentioned in the survey. Reason for lower female labor force participation rate in India. And then this slide tells about some of the initiatives taken by the government for school-going children. So PM e-Vidya, the online platform, so which will provide the online materials to the students. Vidya Dan, the people, those who are interested, can contribute to the academic materials to the platform. Like that, one class, one TV channels, and then extensive use of radio for the differently abled people, the platform to reach, help them to avail the education. Like that, government has taken many measures to provide support to the school children during this pandemic time. And then for the skill development, what are the measures taken by the government? Or operationalizing unified skill regulator, bringing unified skill regulator in our country. And Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, you know that the version 1, version 2, now we have launched version 3 to improve the skill development and improve the competencies among the people and the quality enhancement of the people so that they will be globally competitive, improving the competing abilities among the people, and focusing on integration of vocational and formal education, both at school and higher education, which will provide more practical learning and practical education instead of more theoretical, more practical education to the children. Like that, some of the measures are cited in the economic survey. These are the main points. So with this, we are finishing our class on economic survey. Both volume 1 and volume 2 we are completing. Okay. So now we are going to get into the questions. So the questions which I have shown you at the start, I am going to show you now. So we are going to check, okay, what the class has delivered to us. So coming back to the questions. So here, how did India respond to the once in a century crisis? We all know that. So we responded in a calibrated manner. First, we helped the weaker sections. Then we supported with the monetary and fiscal measures. Then we entered into the expansionary policy, which means investment measures. Then how India differed from the front-loaded stimulus package. Earlier, all the countries, they started applying the stimulus once the economy started showing signs of the slowdown. But India started spending only after addressing the supply side constraints. First, we address the supply side constraints. Then we try to increase the demand side. Then we started spending on the investment side. So that is the difference what India exhibited when compared to the other countries. It is not a myopic one. It is not a short-sighted one. So it is a far-sighted approach of the government of India. And then what could be the possible reason for India's current account surplus? Current account surplus of India is due to the less imports and then less payment for the imports. Less imports is due to the economic downturn. Less payment for the imports is due to the global oil price decline. And the next one is the huge inflows of foreign direct investments and then foreign portfolio investments, especially the foreign portfolio investments. Then what do we interpret from the Laffer curve relationship? According to Laffer curve, there is a level called as the optimal level where the tax rate will be more comfortable. Same angle, there is a level where the foreign debt can also be comfortable. So foreign debt cannot be called as a good or bad. So there is a level up to a particular point during which at which the foreign debts are not harmful. So that is the fourth one. Then fifth one, labor force participation rate for women is lower than for men. Why? Because the women are spending most of the times in the unpaid domestic activities. Then comes the next one. Recent agriculture reforms, a remedy or a melody? It is a remedy. The survey says that it is a remedy for all the issues what we had in our economy. Because that is the answer. So they are based on the multiple premise of the act. So what is the focus is mentioned by in the survey, and in elaborate manner they are discussed in what way it acts as a remedy. The next one is the transmission of high reserve money. The transmission of high reserve money growth to money supply growth was only partial, because it was not able to show more transmission mechanism. It was not getting transmitted properly. Why? Because the banks were reluctant. They are parking all the money released by the RBI. It went back to RBI under the reverse repo mechanism because of uncertainty and other things. Now comes the next one. Headline inflation or core inflation as target for monetary policy. We have to consider what type of economy we are. If we are a developed economy, we can go for the core inflation. But if we are a developing economy, then it's better for us to go for the headline inflation, because it captures the picture in a more relevant manner, which helps us to understand the troubles or the problems faced by the common man, which cannot be understood by looking only at the core inflation. Okay, like that the survey makes the argument. So these are the things, these are the questions which we could be able to answer with the help of the understanding what we got from the volume 2. With these students, I am finishing the economic survey. So the first two parts have consumed more time. So here I try to save time by just limiting the time of copying. So I have not given time to copy the notes. So maybe it would disturb you. So my intention is not to disturb you. So I wanted to convey the maximum thing, so in a minimum time. So the notes I will be delivering to you in the soft copy format. So everything, when you look at the notes, so then when you read the notes once, you will understand the things, whatever you learned in the class. With this, I am finishing our class and economic survey, volume 1 and 2. I am completing, students. Thank you. If you got any doubts, you can ask me. Otherwise, let's wind up the session. Thank you, students. Thank you all. Thank you. No doubts? Okay, so let's finish the session. Thank you, students. Thank you all. Thank you.
Recording stopped.